welcome. We are live. We are going to have a freaking amazing episode today because we're going to talk about something that a lot of people have been talking about for a couple months now, at least, and that is ChatGPT. Also, we've been longer talking about AI. Will it take us over and become our true overlords? And I do like the fiction part where it's like, oh, look at the AI that's now running the humanity, and that's fun for fiction.
I look forward to our AI doctors.
Oh yes, Tom is definitely looking forward to that. But in the meantime, the AI we have to work with is different from the AI that various entities and news medias are trying to use to make people feel emotional. And I'm sorry, but if you're going after feeling emotional, you might have moderate to mild depression. And please see your doctor about that. There is someone at the door, Tom. It is. I know who it is. It's okay. It's just chaos. By the way, I know that normally you're used to chaos for Coffee Bunny, but sometimes we have chaos even on Mondays.
I'm here.
And we also have Chaos Demon.
Lurking when you never expect.
So, we're going to talk about using ChatGPT specifically to help as writers, as creatives, how to do that. We're also going to talk about other AI software such as Midjourney and even what is it, the one in Canva?
And Artbreeder?
Artbreeder, but also there is an AI, isn't there? Yeah, there's an AI.
Canva has one.
Yeah.
The Canva one is interesting.
Yes. Although it will never get hands, I assume. Boy, it is so, seriously, do you want an uncanny image? Can I interest you in Canva's AI?
There's an odd trick to fixing that. We'll talk about that. Don't let me forget.
Okay, cool. It's not that I don't enjoy the uncanniness, because sometimes you just want creepy images that no one can quite place why it's creepy. There is a valid use for all the things these various AI software are good at, and all the things that they're not good at. There's a way to take advantage of that as well. So we're going to talk about all of that and more, and chaos. And I don't know what our fantastic, amazing panel have planned, but I'm definitely here for the ride. So without further ado, look, it's people.
Hello.
It's Charlie and Megan and team. Hello, CB. Hello, cool gamer.
Hello.
So I think CB actually brings us to the first question we should be talking about, and it depends on which version of Jarvis you're talking about.
I was going to say, original Iron Man movie, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, the self-aware Jarvis that we get later, not quite, though it is interesting, some of the things that are being attempted where they're doing the thing that could never possibly go wrong and letting the AIs train themselves and write their own code. That could never, ever be a bad thing.
Also, one of the advantages to working with AI is if you are neurodivergent, you actually have a bit of an advantage because AI is inherently neurodivergent.
Yes.
And so we, as neurodivergent people, are used to speaking to both neurotypicals and neurodivergent people. Mm-hmm. So we have developed a variety of skill sets for communicating effectively with a wide variety of people who are not like us, because no two neurodivergent people's brains are identical. And so we are used to always feeling like a stranger in a strange land kind of vibe. And that gives us a unique advantage when utilizing AI software to get what we want out of it.
So, yeah, I think the problem that we're having right now is that they've decided to call all this stuff AI, and none of it is what you were probably thinking of when you think of AI.
None of it's actually intelligent.
Yeah, the way ChatGPT works, for example, and Bard and all of those that you type something into and get a response from, they are very fancy autocompletes. Basically, most of them are built off of the similar technology to the way autocomplete works. They have a
Yeah.
better handling of contextuality than a lot of autocompletes do, but they're just extremely fancy autocomplete, and so that's the way they work. Now, when you get into some of the more hallucinatory apps out there, like Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and the other visual ones, and the ones that are making video, those are generative, but they are completely unaware of what they're doing. They're running a bunch of checks constantly to be like, does this vaguely fit the criteria that I was given? And it follows the path that most likely will give the prompt that it was, but it is not there. There is no intentionality in it. It doesn't know what it's doing, even though sometimes it really does look like it knows what it's doing. Hi, Jenna. But yeah,
Hello, Jenna.
it's important.
Hello.
Like, they have muddied the waters for the word for the idea of artificial intelligence so much.
Yeah. So, real quick, this current iteration of AI that is in the news right now that we are all talking about is more specifically called generative AI.
Yes.
And what that means is it's a fancier, more academic, complete version of what Charlie was saying for autocomplete. It is taking prior human completed scripts, weighing them based on how often they occur, and generating a response based on that. They are not self-aware. They are not truly self-generating. They are using a pool of human created responses to figure out the next word that comes.
The Google Bard is the most condescending AI that I have ever met in its life, and I really want to know exactly what it was trained on, because I have a feeling it was internal email system or something.
Oh, no.
Because it has this like, "Hi, you're the brightest, smartest, most wonderful person in the world. Let me explain to you why that was a dumb question." Like, every answer it gives kind of has that tone to it. So yeah, but
okay, don't worry, CB. That's just to get some of the explanations out of the way. What we're actually going to be talking about is how writers can use this as a tool, just like Photoshop, just like Snapseed, just like actually now Microsoft Word is now working, as well as Google Docs. Of how to use essentially this little pool of knowledge that these little bots have to our advantage.
Yeah, I think it's important.
And I mean, at a certain point, we do have to start out with our bona fides.
I think it's also important to start off with the idea that this isn't the AI that people are trying to get us afraid of.
Right.
Because there's a lot of fear being generated on these things. And, like, okay, so AutoGPT just released, I think it was last week or week before last, which is basically a version of GPT that you can install on your computer and give it a task, and it will just run on its own until it completes the task or realizes, I cannot do this. And somebody actually filmed a video where they told it to take over the world and kill all humans. And I love its response. It started a Twitter account for itself and posted 2 tweets. One explaining exactly how useless humans are, and the second one stating its intent that if it ever got its hands on La Bamba, it would destroy all humans. But unfortunately, it cannot figure out how to get its hands on La Bamba, so it can't. And that's all it did.
But it's a thing because all they're doing is mimicking what humans do.
Yeah, it became a troll on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which is the way
we happen to know,
world.
Humans have been trolling other humans for literally thousands upon thousands of years. In fact, some of the oldest printed material that we have found so far is just shitposting and trolling, which I love. Like, I love that archaeologists are unearthing the ridiculous shit posting side of humans.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I love. Of humans have not changed in 8,000 years, and we're not we're not going to change. We are always going to be us, and we are going to go. Oh, really? We're going to do this for like the next 100,000 years, or however long humans actually survive in some form. We are going to still human our way through the universe.
Written troll posts are often called curse tablets because they were meant to curse someone else. But we've been using this same part of our brain for as long as we've had writing
Yes.
to do the same thing.
If you don't like this post, bad things will happen, and yada yada yada.
Also, the per my last email, like that whole, there is like real per my last tablet, like for reals, y'all. It is very real. And like,
No, the ring curse tablet in England,
Oh,
where they then found the ring like 20 miles away, buried with the guy that the curse tablet said had stolen the ring.
Yep.
Oh wow, that's funny.
Humans gonna human all over the universe. So this is just part of us. This is just part of who we are. I'm sure dogs have their own version of trolling each other. I every species probably has their own way. I know
You mean
cats
whenever
have
a dog willingly eats broccoli, it's like, I'm gonna go pee on the spot of that jerk.
How about my first cat, Andy? Every time she was mad at my then husband, she would steal something of his and then go hide it in her little stash under the azalea bush outside. We didn't even know she could get outside. Like, she was definitely trolling him. Oh, and she took everything. She took 2 pairs of glasses, 1 wallet of his, a whole bunch of money, a whole bunch of his commemorative military coins that he would buy, which cost a minimum of $20 and to up to $50 each time he bought a military commemorative coin. There's a whole racket in the military where they keep selling each other commemorative coins for crap. And he was always buying them. Hello, Jen. And anytime my then husband pissed her off, she'd grab something he liked on his nightstand and in her mouth and then run outside and hide it in her little bush. And it wasn't until, the dissolution of my marriage that Tom found a huge honking stash and a bunch of money. It's like, oh, I'm so glad she stole 20s too. Good cat. Good cat. So, like, all species have their own version of trolling is now what I am absolutely convinced of. And so we should accept that, at a certain point, the AI that we design is going to troll us too. It's just part of who we are. We're going to teach it how to do that. But.
And I've been in a lot of debates lately about the ethics of using AI. And I just want to say very briefly, one, we need to have a collective cultural conversation about this because we will have to develop some sense of ethical use for these generative tools. A lot of them have done really weird ones. Like in Midjourney, you cannot have it do an image of milk at all. You cannot use the colors white or black in many contexts that are not racial because they're trying to stop people from making really inappropriate racist posts. So the way that it's being done right now is not necessarily the best way to do it, but a lot of these tools are trying to do that. Mm-hmm. Are there issues with them using people's data without their knowing? That's an ecumenical matter that we could spend the entire stream talking about, but the vocal minority that are out there that are really trying to cast aspersions on writers and artists that are using AI tools is, to me, completely outrageous because there's no such thing as a digital artist in today's world that's not using AI in some way, shape, or form. If you use Photoshop and you use the Smart Select tool, you are using the same type of AI that I am if I'm using Midjourney. It's reading the image, it's understanding the image, and helping you do your select. The same thing if you're doing the repair tool in a lot of apps that have repair tools in them. These these features have been a part of our digital tool set for a really long time, and they're going to be a part of our digital tool set going forward. The question is, how are we going to use them? Digital art is the clip art of the future. It's where people are going to be getting a lot of the very specific clip art that they're looking for from. And if you're not looking at it in that light, I think we have issues. There's a moral panic that is trying to get going, that I have seen a lot of people trying to get bolstered about this. Will kids use ChatGPT to write their essays for school? Of course they will. They've been cheating on essays since essays were assigned to children in school. Of course they will. But if your only way of determining how a kid is learning is either a multiple choice test or a paper that they anonymously turn in that you don't know where it's from, you're not really testing to know if the kid knows anything anyway. So, I mean, we're going to have to adjust how we operate in society with these like any other tool. The issue is, with the advent of the internet, we're still trying to cope with what do we do with a mass communication platform like the internet. We have not figured this out yet. That's why we have all of the like factions that have cropped up all over the place, because people are not up on their media literacy. They're not fully aware of how to operate in a world where you literally know what's going on around the world, where that never was the case. Even with CNN and the dawn of cable news, you only knew the stories that they wanted to tell you. You can hyper focus in and know every forest fire or volcano eruption or earthquake that is happening. Whatever your fear is, you can hyper focus in on it and have that knowledge, and that's causing a lot of anxiety. But that's because we have not developed rituals and habits as a society to be able to use the internet well. Now, the fact that we're struggling with that and generative AI is coming in on it, it's a bit of a scary world. But people were doing deepfakes before this. People were doing really good Photoshop images before deepfakes were a thing.
Oh yeah,
it's like,
Charlie, when I was going through the education program, I took I think it was 9 or 12 CEU credit total kind of semi-class arc in mathematics for teachers. And in it, and I don't know why my textbook put this in there, but they mentioned and like literally had an image of a tablet. I think it was a Babylonian tablet, where it was essentially a tablet sent home to someone's parents that they were caught paying another student to do their math homework for them. And there was an image of a tablet in my textbook and like a whole, couple paragraphs about this of students cheating is forever. And no teacher should feel that they are not a good teacher if they've caught a student cheating, but also they should understand this is just part of how students can be, and that we need to never let our guard down. It was very also a little teacher propaganda-y, but nevertheless, this is like just part of humans always.
And
Why
as
would they not
Jen
use the latest tools?
and as Jen and Jenna,
yeah.
This is not going to get confusing.
We've
have
got
both
a bunch
pointed
of
out
teachers in here.
how teachers have now adapted in the English in the writing part is that you now have to show rough drafts so they can see the changes over time, which is something that generative AI is still working on.
Yes.
It doesn't understand how to really do editing that well. Especially like, what do you call it? Conceptual editing?
Oh, yeah. There is one editing trick that I can share with you for GPT, that ChatGPT, that's really handy. But I just wanted to get kind of the moral panic stuff out of the way and not ignore it. Because, yeah, there are a lot of concerns with AI and generative AI in general, but it is not going to go away. Toothpaste is out of the tube. There is no going back. You cannot outlaw a technology, no matter how much people want to try. All you're going to do is create a black market for that technology. So it's better for us to learn how to exist with it and not be shocked when during the next presidential campaign, because it will happen during the next presidential campaign, videos start cropping up of candidates saying and doing god-awful, terrible things that are not real.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've already seen that with Obama being a target of the deep fakes.
Yep.
And we actually had that when I was still working in library land. When one of my fellow colleagues was like, I'm sure she still is very Republican, but she was like, I got sent a link to this video. Obama would never actually say this, right? And I'm watching going, that's a deep fake. You could, like, if you work in Photoshop, you start recognizing what you can and can't do to manipulate faces in particular. And so once you start working with a tool, you get more familiar with what it's capable of and what its limitations are. And so I was like, yeah, also Obama would not actually say that. That doesn't even actually sound like his voice. But that has to do with me being neurodivergent. I have a serious ear for voices. Like Tom knows, I can just be walking by while he is watching something animated and be like, hold up, is that Buddy Epson? And he's like, the guy's been dead forever. How do you know that I'm not watching something current? I'm like, I just know the voice of Buddy Epson anywhere. And it's not that I was ever a fan of Buddy Epson. It's not that I hated him. It's just, reruns of Beverly Hillbillies.
Although I was just recently rewatching the second season of Harley Quinn, the animated series, and realizing how many of those voice actors are also voice actors in Housebroken.
Yes.
Ones of like, oh wow, they're just reprising their roles as.
I wonder if it's the same casting director or the same production team or something. But again, like, you just start kind of identifying the tools you're familiar with. So if you would like to get better at recognizing when people are using, for instance, ChatGPT, Midjourney, and so on, stick around. Because we're going to get you familiar so that you can actually get some things done in there. The more you use it, the more you will start. Like, I've started recognizing ChatGPT's voice in writing. We have now, what have we been using it? What, about a month and a half, 2 months?
Has it really been that long?
Well, we started using it, I think, the last 3 episodes of the previous season, and then we're 3 in, so that's 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's when we started really using ChatGPT, like, every week, and I already now am recognizing the writing voice of ChatGPT. Because it honestly has its own voice. It's like anyone else. It's got kind of this distinctive, it likes to twist words sometimes a little bit.
Oh, it loves puns.
It always sounds
and dad humor.
It loves puns. Oh my god, it is everybody's dad.
But whenever you have it write like a paragraph, it always sounds like something from Vogue.
Yes. Or Cosmo.
Yeah, somewhere between Vogue and Cosmo.
Cosmo from the late 90s, early 2000s specifically.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, it is kind of, wow, how much did they just, like, I always think of when they were setting up ChatGPT, I think of the montage scene from Weird Science. Who's old enough to remember this? Where they are feeding in all of these magazine pages into the scanner. And all these cutouts of models and all this essentially commercial adware. They're feeding in all this commercial ad and commercial art into a scanner to feed into the software, supposedly. And that is what I think of like, is that what they did? They just pulled all the old magazines down and was like, there you go, right? Like a magazine editor. Jenna says, it is taught to seek patterns in language, so I wonder what they are feeding it for those outputs. Yes, exactly. The more we
actually know what it was fed. And yeah, a lot of magazines were included in that set.
And a lot of PR material from various media. So like one of the things I recognized was when we were working on the Mel Brooks episode, the show description options that ChatGPT was giving me were very specific to book covers and documentary blurbs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it very much felt like that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how much PR materials have they fed into this that it's just spits out PR? Not good PR, but PR. It spits out like, was this everything that's ever been submitted to the Sundance Film Festival PR? Because it really has that vibe. Versus, it really didn't know about Gene Wilder. Like, it did not understand how to talk about Gene Wilder, but it absolutely understood how to talk about Mel Brooks.
It just knew to be respectful of Gene Wilder.
Hey, that was weird.
So the weirdest thing about using ChatGPT that I've found out is that you kind of have to treat it like you would a human that's new on the job, because you can actually explain to it, no, and this is that, you should talk, we should do it this way, and it will recontextualize what it's doing and actually get better. And that's one of the things that for me makes it fascinating to play with. And I've actually, in my mind, I compare it much more to the computer of the Starship Enterprise
Yeah.
than any of the other AIs, because it's very clear in the canon of Star Trek that is not an AI. That is just a computer synthesized voice that's pulling on various databases to give answers. And with the pro version of ChatGPT, you can actually add your own data sets and databases to it, and it can mine those for information and present it to you in various ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it is much more akin when you're using it. If you've ever seen Star Trek, think about it as if you're talking to the Enterprise computer of, like, you don't have to say computer each time, but, computer, I need a da 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 da, and if it's wrong, correcting it and asking it to do it again. Because it works a lot like if you've ever seen a TNG, the Next Generation episode of them sitting at the console working with the computer. It feels very much like that, where it doesn't really know what it's doing, but it can execute instructions that you're giving it.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's and I think that's why it's a good analogy about somebody who's new on the job. It's also kind of got that level of memory.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell them, here's a task to do. It gives you a result. You can then say, okay, but I want it like this, and they're like, okay, I can do that. Now, if you then give them another context to give it, you got a 50-50 chance if it understands how to change this context. And you do another one, and it's got a 25% chance of remembering the previous context and understanding the direction you're going in versus what it's doing. And so often you have to restate the original statement in a new way to actually get the results you're looking for, because it's a new person on the job. It only understands so much. It doesn't know how you in particular think and want this to do. So it has a very generalized concept of, what does somebody mean when they say funny? What does somebody mean when they say entertaining or humorous or scientific?
Mm-hmm.
And one
It's
way,
going to give a
I'm sorry.
but I was pretty much done. Don't worry. Go on.
But one way to hedge your bet on that is if you are saying, like, if you asked it, say, for a video description, to say, to include the phrase using the previous video description, if you make a reference back to output that it has made, it has a better chance of understanding, oh, this is part of the same context thread, and continuing forward with
I mean, it is like if you ever had to train a new person on the job.
Oh yeah,
this
it's
is the
very
exact
much.
same experience with ChatGPT.
You have to be really explicit with ChatGPT about what you want, how you want it. Like, you can't just. Sometimes you can just plug stuff in and, like, let it go, but other times you really need to be careful crafting what you're saying, because the language they speak and the language we speak they don't always meet up.
It's true.
And yeah, that's why we're like, anyone who's saying that it's going to replace writers, especially for entertainment purposes,
Mm-hmm.
I I wonder what they enjoy for entertainment,
Right?
because it's not that creative.
Because for like press releases and stuff, oh yeah, I think a lot of that grunt work. If you have ever had a job at a newspaper or a blog where the news reports came across your desk and you had to rewrite them in the style of that your paper wanted or blog wanted them to be in to go out to go out, like yeah, that will probably be handled by this. It will be able to understand that context enough to rephrase it in the way that the publication wants it to come out, but it is not going to do any of, like, I've asked it to tell me stories, and it's kind of like an excited toddler that is just like, okay, so once there was a ghost and the ghost did spooky things and the spooky things went blah. Like they're not, they're very vague, they're never specific. You know, I asked it to help write a plot for a wuxia novel, and it basically wrote this very long story that included several places where it just said they fight, because it doesn't understand to do the context, to make it doesn't understand excitement, it doesn't understand pacing, it doesn't understand a lot of
Emotions.
those things that make story actually good. It's not actually the story that is what makes a story good as much as we like to pretend that it is. It's the pacing, it's the voice, it's the mood, it's all of those other things. Like you could take a very boring story and make, oh god, Death Note, I'm sorry, Death Note, a guy is eating a potato chip while writing in a journal for like 5 to 10 minutes on the screen, and it is like on the edge of your seat. What? Oh, like tension and anxiety producing because of the voice, the way that that is handled out. ChatGPT would just be like, Light eats a chip while writing in his journal, and there's no tension, there's no none of that. But when handled well, because that's what I love about that scene, because it shows the power of voice when you're trying to get something across, because you shouldn't be tense watching somebody eat potato chips writing in a journal. It should not give you anxiety. But when handled well, it can.
Mm-hmm. And there is, the crux of why we're seeing things that ChatGPT is actually good at and things that it's very poor at. It is very good at general statements that we all have to keep saying over and over. It has no problem repeating that in 100 different ways because it's got so many samples. It has no concept of emotional arc.
It is really interesting with what ifs, though. It has never produced what I would consider a writable outline for me, but I've had like thoughts of what if this historical event, but in this genre. And you can ask it that, and it will do interesting things. But I would look at it much more like a prompt engine. It's like having a good writing buddy who is not a writer.
Yes.
Where you can pop ideas off of each other. They may not come up with the right answer, but they may give you enough of a direction that you realize, oh, this is the answer. This is where I'm going. This is where the story needs to end up.
I mean, it's essentially, to me, a much more nuanced version. So, which is why a lot of people who aren't very versed in creation think it's so amazing. But essentially, at this point, it's just a very nuanced version of whenever I haven't played any of the new, last couple generation video game RPG stuff. But I know it was in this direction back in the early 2000s of when you create your character in RPG, you get all these sliders to change, skin tone, muscular build, facial elements, body elements, races. I would not call any particular creation someone made with that art. It was somebody in the background creating all those pieces to figure out how they could blend together, but the person doing the sliders did not actually look, I made this. It's like you figured out what the arrangement is you want, and that's what ChatGPT does. Is it has, when something says funny, these are the words that tend to show up. When we say in this context of, this historical setting, these are the words and phrases I tend to see. So it can reinterpret them something else into another form. And it's, we're using sliders. And it's figuring out what are those terms to use.
Also, it's really important to understand it has no knowledge past 2022. I think it's been updated to 2022 now.
Yeah, it has.
So any recent events, it has completely no information in its data set for. And more recent stuff, it actually has less because it hasn't had time to develop a historical record on which to draw from. So,
for example, when I was writing about Judith Humans passing away, she the ChatGPT was like, I can't write her. I was trying to write a eulogy for her, and ChatGPT was like, I can't write a eulogy for her. She's still alive, and I'm like, well, yesterday that was true, but
so there is a trick.
Oh, I figured out a way around it, but that was the initial.
Yeah.
But as long as you're using it to trick, because there's a story that I've been working on for a while that I've really been hung up at a certain element of the plot. And what it was very good for is I could just basically I gave it my initial outline, which was very simple. You have to be very simple. There is a character limit that does seem to fluctuate based off of usage. I've noticed sometimes the character limit of what you can put in is quite expansive, and sometimes it's like, you gave me more than a paragraph. What are you doing? I cannot. Just no, to the darkness with me. So that seems to fluctuate. But it was a very basic outline, and I would started just kind of poking it. How would the outline look if this happened differently? And it would basically revise and rewrite the outline, and I could see a version. None of the versions that I would have actually written for myself, but I didn't have to take the time to cascade the action down the timeline. I could quickly get a rough estimate of how would this affect the story if I did this instead? How would this affect the story if I did this instead? And through that, I was able to figure out, oh, okay, so this is actually going in a more interesting direction. So that's actually how that should play out. And then go back to my outline and actually work on the outline and build the change in from that point forward. It never really produced an outline that was like, oh, yes, that's the story that I must write. And who knows, maybe one day it will get there. And that will be an interesting day if and when that happens. But instead of taking hours and hours and hours to be like, okay, well, that will change how this plays out and this plays out and this plays out, I was able to just let the AI do the changes to the story from that point forward and get a sense of what that might look like. And that was extremely helpful.
And that kind of gets to what we were talking about for one of the real main uses we find for ChatGPT for just about any writer. And that is, it's a writer's room you can walk into anytime, day or night, without needing anyone else. Is you can use it to bounce off ideas and see what something else comes up with and see if that reverberates with you.
So the one thing that it can do for editing, before I forget, that can be very handy if you're working on like a blog post or a newsletter or a short description of something, and you want to just do a quick edit of it, you can ask it, revise and edit the following, paying special attention to spelling, grammar, and readability. And then very importantly, tell it, and afterwards give me a list of everything you changed. And then you put the text in that you want it to do, and it will fix spelling, it will fix grammar, it will fix some readability issues in what you wrote. And then it will give a detailed list of what it did, so you can go back and very clearly see what it wanted to change, to know if you wanted to change it. If you don't ask it to give you a list, sometimes it will decide it's a bad editor that goes, oh, well, I guess I can get creative. Like it now knows it has to report back on the changes from the original. So you have to include and afterwards give me a list of everything you changed, or you're like, here's my little paragraph about this butterfly, and you're like, why are there spiders here now? I don't understand. Because it can get a little what it thinks is creative at times. So make sure to put that in there. But it really does help, especially when you're having a hard time phrasing something just right, that you know the grammar is wrong. All of your grammar checkers tell you it's wrong, but have no suggestions on how to fix it. And you're like, I don't know how this sentence should work. It can actually help fix stuff like that for you, or at least give you a direction in the right path. But it's very handy for that kind of editing.
Yeah.
It can also help you. I had a series that I was working on a while ago that I never made a setting Bible for. And that takes a lot of time to go back through and pull out all the relevant information from it to have all of the characters and stuff. Because it was just kind of a free writing exercise. And so I took that text and said, create a series Bible from this, focusing on characters, their descriptions and biographies, settings, and any vital information about it, any novel terms or lore. And I gave it the text, and it spit out a series Bible with an explanation of the story. It actually included a couple like prompts for how the story might continue from that point. But a description of each character, a bio of them, of each place, and all of anytime I used a word specifically in a unique way, it called it out. It may not have included a definition of it, but it went, oh, you invented a magic sci-fi word here. So I don't know, but this is new, and actually provided me with a list to speed that process up immensely, so that I could go back in and actually start using those characters and fixing the world building in that story again. And that was magic to me, because that saved hours and days of just combing through and copying and pasting and rewriting and all of that I would have had to have done otherwise.
And yeah, and that's one of the things we too have like really found uses for. Like I was showing last night.
Yes, I was just thinking like I want to mention that. You go on. You're the one who told me.
So yeah, we were doing our usual, and yeah, it's good for PR stuff, and we'll get to that next hour, no problem. Which is like how we've been using it on Wednesday nights for the shows and stuff. But one of the additional things that came up last night after we finished all of it was Glory found some of her old work. And, it was a great poem, but it was like, but what do I call it? And that's where I told her, like, here's the phrasing you use to get that. That's all you have to do is, what is, take any descriptor.
Yeah, I used you could just do what are titles, right? But I wanted catchy. Okay, but you could do exciting,
spooky,
interesting, or one I have used in the past, funny.
I like doing themes like hippie themed, pirate themed, hippo themed.
I know, you're not wrong. I mean,
and if
you get a lot of really fun, interesting titles that way that you wouldn't get just by typing in, give me an interesting title or give me a funny title.
And if you just want to know what the most clickbaity way to promote the thing is, add that will encourage people to click on it.
Mm-hmm. Or just say, what is a clickbait title for, because that sometimes works as well.
Yeah, I found the other one is really interesting because it will give you a bevy of like, oh Lord, you can see the bad 5 year ago thumbnails from YouTube that had those phrases right across.
ChatGPT has definitely given me every BuzzFeed article title I've ever clicked on as clickbait title. I mean, yes. But anyway, so you're gonna whatever titles, and then quotation, and and Tom's like, you just plug it in, and at the end, put in your last quotation there. So this is what it gave us. And if you are in fact subscribed to my Substack, then you received this morning
Yes, it did.
this, and Tom and Megan, this was number 4 was the one they agreed on. We had a couple in the running out of these 10, but at the end we all agreed on the love that lingers.
If you are using something that has quotations in it that you need it to understand, instead of using quotations, you can just do a colon and then paste in the content that you're needing it to evaluate. It can get confused and do really weird monster text. Like if you want to see some really weird monster text, you can put whatever you wrote that has quotes in it in quotes, but it can create some really interesting monster text.
So again, like I just wanted to show like anybody, like so titles and headlines are my weakness. I am not good at it. I have never been good at it.
Same.
It's like the only thing I miss my mother for. She was really good at this. She was always good at it. And it's like, why woman, why did you have to die? I still needed my editor to make me titles. So ChatGPT has now, truly made my mother obsolete, and it's great. She's been dead 12 years, so it's not like she's coming back. I'm very much convinced. For the first several years, I was worried that one day I would get an email from her of, hey, did you miss me? But she's definitely staying in the ground now. So ChatGPT has taken up the slack, and that has honestly taken such a stress burden off of me as a writer who also has to self-promote. Because coming up with titles is like, oh, I just don't want to write anymore. Like, that is how I feel. If I could write and never have to self-promote, I would be so happy.
Yes.
I don't even mind the editing. It's the promotion, it's the headlines, it's the title. It's like, no, just taking away my will to live. So, and ChatGPT can do that. I mean, you're still essentially in the editorship role of you decide among these titles, and then you still can tweak it. We do tend to tweak it for our Monday shows since we need multiple titles. We do tweak it. We even tweak the descriptions because, again, sometimes ChatGPT is like, oh, we're going to have experts on chat. What do you know that I don't know? It's just going to be the regular group of people, or it'll just be me and Tom. I don't know who's coming.
It thinks all podcasts have multiple hosts. And every time I ask it to help with the podcast description, it always talks about my guests and all of this. And I'm just like, but it's just me on this one.
Also, when I put in and I tell it a podcast, write me a description for this podcast on this subject, it has a tendency to assume it's a lot of men. Mm-hmm. And so, again, there is some baked-in misogyny. And so, but again, what am I doing? I'm changing pronouns. I'm used to playing the pronoun game. It's fine.
Hey, Charlie, if you want a single host one, try telling in the style of true crime.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I just wanted people to see, like, you could just jump into ChatGPT right now. While we're going to give you more advanced tips and tricks and ideas, those are not necessary to get you started. Not at all. You could just say, give me and again, I will be happy to, in the next hour, show y'all how, like, other ways that I've used ChatGPT, because I am a baby beginner.
And don't feel any pressure like you're going to have to upcharge. At least for right now, the version that you get is very, very good. It is one version behind. So if you pay, you get the latest version of ChatGPT. So you're going to be one version behind. It's still very usable, very manageable. It can be not available depending on when you're using it because they prioritize paid users over free users, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there is a harder limit on how much information you can give it. That, as I understand, either goes away or becomes a lot larger with the paid version. And the paid version has plugins that let you do things I was talking about before, like add a custom database to it, add a spreadsheet to it to mine information from. It can actually connect to the internet and pull things from various websites for you if you need it to do that. But almost all of the well, actually, I don't think any of us have a paid account with them. So we're only going to be talking about things you can do with the free version of ChatGPT. But it's not like you get to use it for so many hours and then you have to pay. It's not for shareware in that kind of a way. It's just you may load it up and it's just like our servers are busy, come back later.
I have had to refresh before, but I was able to use it within 10 minutes of when I initially wanted to. And honestly, it was actually less. But that said, I'm using it later in the evening, my time, and I'm in the central time zone. So, because I mostly use it Wednesday nights after 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's when I'm usually using it. So it's not really super busy at that point. And honestly, I can actually tell when Tom and Megan are using it at the same time, because it starts throwing in occasionally the same information it gave to one of the others, because everybody will be posting in the chat. And I can see oh, I got that one, but I didn't post it. Sometimes we all post the same one because ChatGPT is totally reusing stuff. So it's still kind of interesting. But we're all using the free account.
And there are quite a few paid ones that are out there, and those are not necessary. There are other AI tools that we'll be talking about later that some have prices associated with them. ChatGPT at this point, it's an optional. If it's not able to, if you need the extra functionality, it may be worth it to you to have a paid account. But yeah, everything we're going to be talking about is free.
Yeah, do you need to just put in your entire 70,000, 120,000 word book and have it make a Bible for you? Yeah, maybe you want to pay for it because it's still a lot cheaper than the human hours it would take.
Yes, trying to hire someone to help you.
Or do what I did and do it chapter by chapter and then edit all of that together.
Good job. Very smart. But yeah, we're going over basic beginner stuff you can do with free accounts. So Megan and I do not have the paid Art Breeder, but we have used Art Breeder AI plenty of times. At first I used to only have access to the free version of Canva and that AI, and now thanks to Kat, my little mentor, I have access to the pro version. So I do have some insight into that, although honestly there wasn't that much other than the waiting. There really wasn't much of a difference for me between the free version and the pro version in Canva. But nevertheless, we're going to go over it to at least get you started, because I know I definitely was intimidated to even jump into Canva's AI. And it's only because Sunday Fun Day, we are all getting together and there's Megan and Charlie buzzing. And I'm like, oh, FOMO, I don't want to be left out. What are we doing? Let me open up the Canva browser. Okay, what do I type in? And then having fun and giggling over that stuff. That's the only reason why I was doing it, truthfully, was peer pressure, man.
And while I have not seen any of the companies really taking action on this yet, do read the EULAs for any of these generative things that you are using, to just for your own safety's sake. Anything created with an AI is not copyrightable. I need to say that very clearly. You cannot copyright anything created with an AI. Now, if you alter it substantially and do other things to it, that derivative work can be copyrightable, but that's the first thing that you need to know. Most of these are issuing their releases, what the content they're providing to you, under one of many different licenses that clearly spells out that you cannot use them for commercial purposes. And that gets taken away if you have a paid account. So, for example, I have a Midjourney paid account because I am using these images commercially and do not want to risk them coming after me for using them commercially without the license from them. So while the image is not copyrightable, everything that exists in the United States is contractually licensable because that's the system that we have set up. So while I am not aware of anybody getting sued or getting cease and desists for using any of this generative content, just read the EULAs first so that you don't get yourself in trouble.
And on that lovely note, how about we do a little sprinty sprint? We will see you later, Stacy. Do be sure to come back later when you get a chance to watch the rest. Maybe with your other browser tab open. As you try the experiments of the things that we're saying to do, give it a try. So we will see y'all in approximately 10 minutes. What a wonderful time to make sure you have something to drink. We are a hydrate or dehydrate kind of crowd. Or maybe it's snack time. I know Tom went and got empanadas, so I'm going to heat up an empanada during the break.
How dare you?
Oh, I know. It's so good. It's sausage and egg. Okay. I regret nothing. See y'all in a little bit. Me banana me. Me banana 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 me. Me banana 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 me.
I have a question about the timer. What are we supposed to be remembering?
World War One.
Oh, okay.
That's what is it? Flanders Field? Right? Isn't it? Tommy muted.
Yeah, that's what the red poppies are about.
Yeah,
Oh.
Flanders Field.
Now that makes a whole lot more sense.
Hi, Spence.
Oh, Spence, I was just talking about you and the Owl House and all of the wonderful things, and it was amazing. And I was having Swiss roll while I did it, so I may be a little bit hyper because sugar and chocolate. Yay!
Oh, speaking of Owl House, because of your recommendation, I recommended it to Sean because he has nothing to do while he's, bored and recovering. So he's gonna probably watch that at some point. So we shall see what he thinks about it.
The worst thing about it is it was tragic.
And if he doesn't like it, it was your fault.
If he doesn't like it, I'm going to have to take a special diversion on my trip to beat him up. And then, no, I'm kidding. Or am I?
I was actually just reading Spence's post and about the Owl House. Tom and I have not watched the last episode, but I will prepare to get wrecked.
It will. There's a moment that I don't want to spoil that I was utterly in shock and yelling out, no, they wouldn't do this to me. No. Like, just for like 5 look, Brian had to pause and rewind because I would not stop shouting at the television.
Recovering from what? What?
You were talking about Sean.
Oh yeah, he caught the plague.
He danced with Miss Rona a little too close.
Yeah.
Dirty Europeans.
Which really worries me with all of the travel that we're about to do. It's still okay to wear a mask in a airport, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wear your mask and don't take it off for anything.
I mean, airports have
drink water
rules.
beforehand. Do not drink until you are safely away from the airport.
Just saying, airports have weird rules. So, in a panic, I asked them when we were talking to the rep specifically what the requirements were for a walking cane, because I did not want them to take my carbon fiber cane away from me because it was deemed a weapon or something because it is carbon fiber.
Mm-hmm.
But big person need carbon fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, travel this week. I was planning on wearing my KN95 mask into the gas station bathrooms that I will inevitably have to go to.
Oh, good.
See, that's the one thing that
never
worries.
have fresh air in there. So again, wearing my mask.
That's one of the things that worries me about travel because I haven't traveled much since Miss Rona came to the party, and I already had issues of going into restrooms and getting, let's just say, "Ma'am, why are you in here?"
Mm-hmm.
From people that scared me. That gets even worse when you can't see all of my face and you just see the long hair.
Yep. Although, I mean, our stepfather has long gray hair. It's beautiful. Honestly, it was apparently one of the things that our mom found very attractive about him. And it just goes in soft tendrils. But yeah, from the back, he's been mistaken. He's what is he? He's 6'2", 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
And he's been mistaken several times for a woman. Just in the last 10, 15 years. And he just thinks it's amusing because he's all he goes, oh. Like people have remarked on his bottom.
I've mostly learned that if it is a very tall person with a nice ponytail, the answer is always, all right, woman, former Navy. Which one? Because if you
Yes.
retire from the Navy, you are required, and if you retire from career Navy, let me specify, you are
Yeah.
almost required to grow a ponytail for the next decade or two at least.
Yeah.
That's why we're traveling through Denver, because I was concerned about going to the Salt Lake of Cities.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent you guys a video on how to properly remove your mask so that you don't accidentally like contaminate yourself
Cool.
from, the germs on the mask. Just so you are all prepared for travel.
Didn't you have a layover in the Salt Lake City airport once? Was that where you were like,
Yes,
everybody was a head shorter than me? It was weird.
it's all hobbits.
It's all hobbits, y'all. Nobody talks about like somehow Mormons have like evolved into hobbits.
At least the ones there, but I have now talked to Mormons who have traveled, and they're like, no, that's right. You can tell who's a local because they're all small. If you're from out of town, you're average to tall, but all the locals, yeah, they're all small.
You know, that oddly makes sense.
See, I was just afraid the Mormons would do something. They would have us locally.
Yeah, I don't want to go into all that.
Because, like,
I don't want to go into all that.
We were not laying over there, and I'm like,
Yep, I knew Charlie was about to mute. It was like, oh, okay. I started counting in my head.
Welcome to Hobbiton.
I'm very much looking forward to partying with the Dorsets this week.
I'm so jelly.
plus in Denver, you can re-up.
It's going to be wild. That's all I'm going to say.
I know. I just want to be a fly on the wall. Like, I don't even care about participating. I just want to watch,
Just voyeuristically want to be there.
Exactly.
Use a bingo card.
Like the thing is, like I already have feels that like I don't know how much of the actual reason we're going to go there is going to happen, because I feel like Tom and Brian are going to break off and get into shenanigans, and Glory and I are going to break off and get into different shenanigans.
Yes.
And then we're going to be like, oh yeah, food show.
Yes. That
Hey.
was what I thought was going to happen. Yeah. It's con rules, but that's why I'm calling it Food Con.
I almost feel like I know what to put the ringtones for.
For Brian and Charlie?
Yes.
What?
From a musical called Chess.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I came here for a polite discussion about generative
For a great deal conversation about AI helping me write better. Did not come for the roasting. Okay, but didn't you know you walked into the library? You're going to get read like a book.
Oh, I'm kind of hoping that we have the weird fashion parade at this one like we had at the last one, because that was so much fun when we did that at the last one, and with Gloria and Tom there. Oh, it's going to be delicious.
Oh, Tom and I are bringing, we have packed superfluous number of outfits in order for Charlie and Brian to tell us how they want us to cosplay FoodCon.
Oh boy.
You guys have to take a lot of pictures. Like, it's required. It's the law. You're gonna
yes.
have some
Demanded by
serious
thousands.
consequences if there aren't a lot of pictures in the Discord.
Like,
Yes.
Tom made Rep cry, Brian made Rep cry, Gloria made Rep cry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know at minimum Charlie will be crying a bunch.
It's
Meaning
what I
probably
do.
at least at some point being ugly crying.
Why?
It's what I do. I mean, it is my go-to emotion. It's a safe bet. Like, it is a very safe bet.
Yes, Eva. Like those old-fashioned slideshows where they put it on the big screen and click, click, click. Yes. I want one of those so
And the whole
bad.
section set to "Hello, darkness, my old friend." It's just
Why assumed Charlie was going to be taking a bunch of pictures. Tom will take a bunch of pictures. Everybody will take pictures. I never remember to take pictures unless like we're driving around. I'm looking at scenery and then I take pictures.
Yeah.
And then we will combine all of our pictures into here is our shenanigans.
Yes. Make it into like a slideshow video and post it to YouTube so we can all watch it.
Even the third person doesn't.
It's gonna
Make
be
it really
like
cheesy, extra cheesy.
Like it's gonna look like the live action version a little bit of the ending to Lilo and Stitch, where it's all slideshows and snapshots.
Yes.
Yeah. That
Yes.
checks out.
I am very much looking forward to our first kind of get together with the AuthorTube crowd. And then I am definitely looking forward to our shenanigans in Chicago in the end of summer. Has anyone told Eva that we are convening in her state? But
Get
anyhow,
thyself
yes.
to Glory's Discord. I know you don't like using it anymore, but just like
Well, she's not in Discord at all. It looks like because she didn't even. I couldn't even find her account anymore. She's in the Instagram group, though.
Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't tag her. I wanted to. I tried to tag her, but I couldn't. She's not on Discord anymore. It looks like. Yes, Eva. You need to join our shenanigans. I'm just saying. Anyhow, AI. It's cool. Where shall we go next?
How about we just start? How about we talk about what we do on Wednesdays? What we use it for? Because it is, as I said, it's generative. It gives you options. It does not tell you what is the best option, but it does tell you what is the most common options. And we use it, it's best used for that power of what is the most average way of doing this. That is what it'll tell you. And so at least you can go from there for what is a more general audience style.
Mm-hmm.
So like we use it to help us design our Monday show. More specifically, the titles, the description, the way to what to post on various social media. And we have it, and then we sort of refeed it back some of our edited versions for it to then give new options and descriptions for. So like what we do on Wednesdays is we usually spend the first half hour sort of talking about what is this subject we're going to discuss on Monday, to get us some keywords, some key phrases, some concepts, to get us started thinking about what will we title. We do this whether we're using ChatGPT or just coming with titles on our own. It's you need to know what are the important thoughts you want to get across.
And sometimes while you guys are discussing, I will get ideas about, like, sometimes Gloria uses certain phrasing that I'm like, that would be perfect for a title. And sometimes, that can come out of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one of the other things I really like about, for instance, ChatGPT is it keeps a log so you can refer back.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look anytime you want. And that is very helpful. So I don't have to copy and paste everything into a different document later. Or while I'm doing this, like I can just look at it. I can come back to look. I've got this browser enlarged quite a bit so you can see it from in the share screen. But just understand that in reality, it's much easier to view. I'll show you. It's actually, this is what it looks like. And so, again, it's much easier to look at. Pun-filled YouTube title about Mel Brooks writing. Mel Brooks writes his way to comedy gold, a wonderful journey. This is just the beginning of me learning how to do it, how to use it. One of the things we actually found was very helpful was tags. ChatGPT's tags are very useful, especially when we tell it what platform we're looking for. You know, like YouTube tags versus Instagram tags. It was very helpful. If anything, it has doubled our view count since we started using it. And I think it is to some degree, Charlie, what you talked about of algorithms talking to algorithms.
Yeah.
And so we have really seen an increase in our view counts on YouTube. We're planning on also using this for Instagram tags as well. Because again, the tags is how you are seen.
I have been using it for Instagram, and I will say my posts on Instagram have gone from nobody seeing them to some people seeing them, which is a marked improvement.
I've also been using it on Tumblr, and I can't quite tell based on the analytics whether the views I'm getting are coming from searches or whether they're coming from someone popular reblogging it. But so far I'm getting a lot of like reactions and stuff to the things that I post, and I wasn't necessarily getting that before I started using ChatGPT. So I can't quite 100% say it's ChatGPT, but it looks like it's ChatGPT that's making the difference.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have noticed is each one of those chats is supposed to be a siloed context in which ChatGPT can operate. If I'm having a hard time getting it to do what I'm doing and I start another chat, it does seem to continue along the same lines if the previous chat has not been deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I know it does that because as a joke, we for the past year, one of our creative prompts when we come up with titles has been, all right, now how would Fall Out Boy make a song title for this subject? And so, started also doing that in ChatGPT. And now occasionally it'll pop up these what I now recognize are how it grabs Fall Out Boy titles and lyrics style titles, even when I'm not asking for it.
So that's one of the reasons you may want to delete anything that isn't quite working from it, is it does seem to have some contextual carryover. So if you notice, this is looking a lot like the other thing that I was doing that wasn't right. If you try deleting what it did, that can help. Also, they are looking for us to content farm and make it better. So every response has a thumbs up, thumbs down, and you can tell it what it did wrong. And that's up to you whether or not you want to help actually make the service better as a free service of your own to help them. But I have used that quite a bit, and I've noticed as updates have come along to the free version, some of the things that I was initially giving those thumbs down complaints on have all been fixed. So they are looking for a way to make this as good as it can be. And they do appear to be looking at that feedback from those thumbs down. No, this isn't the way. Messages that you're putting in there. But yeah, I've used it for a lot of different things. I've already talked about having it help me do a series Bible. With the podcast that I'm doing, for the Shadow Phoenix Saga, I am really bad at summarizing story. Like that's not one of my powers, and I have often used it to put in the text of the chapter that that episode contains, and just ask it to summarize. And it has been doing a very good job. And because I've been using the same chat thread this whole time, it has been pulling context from previous chapters in and whatnot. It's been a really fun experience. And then when I have that summary, very specifically saying, now write that into a description for a YouTube video, write that into a description for a podcast episode, and write that into a description for an Instagram post.
Mm-hmm.
And having it help generate all of those from it. And if you are having it generate an Instagram post for you, be sure to say with appropriate hashtags or something like that, and it will automatically do the hashtags for you. And if something could be hashtagged within the post, it will automatically do that for you so that it is set up the way that you want. And if you have no idea what the image should be, if you give it a description of an episode, a video, or a post, and ask it to describe a thumbnail or an Instagram image, it will actually concoct a description for one that you could then use in something like Midjourney to actually make that.
Sometimes when I do that and I get sometimes I don't even ask for that, and it'll give me the image description anyways. And sometimes it is quite hilarious what they think should go with the text that goes with the topic that I included. It is really fun to do. So I recommend just playing around with it for laughs' sake.
And sometimes it's eerie because it describes the image I already made. And I'm just like, am I a bad AI or did I do this right? Like, which is this right now? I don't know. But that has been extremely handy. My favorite thing that I did with it was Shaylin Wrights released her version of a story model for literary fiction. Mm-hmm. And I was curious about playing around with it for one of the stories that I have done. And like I said, it doesn't know anything recent at all. So there's no way it would know her model. So if you start off by asking it a question, again, remember, treating it like a new employee. Can I teach you how to, and whatever you're wanting it to learn, it will then respond, well, of course you can. I'm a generative AI. I'm very, very smart. And then you say, okay, so we're going to use the following model to create an outline for a story, and then put in the model that you're wanting to use. I've actually had it then start prompting me for elements that are in that model, and then actually help to fill it out and test it out that way to get an idea of what something would look like using that. It does already know Save the Cat, by the way. So if that's your preferred model for storytelling, just ask it, what would this look like in Save the Cat, or create a Save the Cat beat sheet. And
that's actually really handy.
Yeah.
I might have to try that out for my novel.
Yeah. So for some of
I've always wondered, like, how does this fit in with Save the Cat? It doesn't seem to fit in.
So for some of the bigger models that have been around, and there's information that would have been in its data set, it actually does know them already. But for something like with what she was doing, I thought it was interesting, but I couldn't quite envision how would this story break down in the way that she was talking about, and was able within a couple minutes to have a very rough, admittedly, but a rough outline that used her methodology for how to unfold a story like that in that way and in that method. And it actually, I feel like, was a great learning experience for me because while I saw her examples in her video, and she has some examples in the spreadsheet that she put out to explain for people to use, seeing it with one of my ideas in it, because I also used it for previous stories where I gave it the rough outline for previous stories and then asked it to retell it, but in the story model, using the story, re-outline it, but in the story model. I could see the moving parts and how they interacted with each other. And it helped me actually understand what she was saying and whether or not it was something I would want to use for my own fiction going forward. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people are really realizing, is how this can actually be used for that very hands-on learning. Like, if you don't understand Save the Cat, pick your favorite movie and ask it to give you the Save the Cat beat sheet for that movie. And that will give you a sense of the beats. And then you can start playing around with it. There's a lot that you can do to actually learn various outlining things. Like, what would this look like if it outlined in the Freytag pyramid or as a Levitt's paradigm? These are all things that I've played with it that it didn't know what were. And like, if you're having a hard time understanding any of these theories of how to construct a story, you can actually use it to help learn as well as to generate something for you in it. And that can be very handy as a writer, because examples are so important, but sometimes you're not familiar with the books or the movies that are used in the examples. So it's still kind of a floating, like, I don't know exactly what that means, but if you take using this and asking it to do it for your favorite film or book, you can then see, oh, okay, so I can see how this relates to that, and all of the pieces kind of fit together.
Yeah, it is actually a decent tool to train yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and I say, like, it's just tech. Everyone wants to talk about, oh, it's the end of the world, but this is still not self-aware, monstrosity or anything. It's just, it's Photoshop. It's really advanced. It can do stuff that you used to require some training to understand even how to do, but it's still just a tool.
You can
It's a tool.
one thing you
It's
can
like
also
autocorrect.
one thing you can also have it do is provide you with templates for things. Like, I need a template for an email that does such and such, and it'll provide, kind of an outline for you to pull from.
Yeah.
And
yeah, actually, I wanted to bring that one up from yesterday as well, where it helped you write a
oh yeah, the email.
Yeah, an email for publicity purposes. But a PR communication between PR personnel. Essentially about us and what we're doing, and essentially you were acting as the PR person to then talk to the PR for another company, and how does that communication look, and even the parts that you were unsure of and were unfamiliar. We all have done and dealt with a lot of this type of PR before. We're like, nope, that's right. That is the actual correct phrasing.
I did have to do a little bit
Yeah,
of
hence I
editing.
said,
It wasn't
no.
perfect, but once I, fixed some incorrect information that it had, and tweaked some other things, it was a really nice email that looked really professional and got the job done. It was very effective. It got the point across very clearly. All the things you kind of look for in an email like that. So I was very satisfied with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's very good. What we used to call boilerplate material.
Yeah. Templates.
Of templates for business purposes. For general communication with the public or with other businesses. It is really good at giving you the general version. As Megan pointed out, you will almost certainly need to modify it for your very specific needs. Do not just post this. Do not be one of those students.
And it's also good at helping you punch up your text. So I'm working on a story that I wanted one of the villains to sound like a villain from an Ayn Rand novel for reasons. And I cannot bring myself to use the extraneous language that is necessary for that to happen. Like my brain will not let me type it out. So I was able to actually take the dialogue for that character and put it in there and ask it to rewrite it, but in the style of this particular character from this particular book. And all of my words are there. It did not rewrite my sentence. It knew, oh, you use this simple word here. Well, that simple word would never be used. It would be this grandiose statement of, greed and superiority. That, and so it fluffed out the language so that it still sounds like me. It is still very much using my intent, and actually used a lot of my language. It just corrected a couple places where my language is much more simple, but hers would bring in a lot more of that grandiosity. And so I was able to get that tone of voice in this character that really makes them feel as off-putting as they need to feel when you first meet them in this story. And if you're familiar with her work, it gives you kind of a, oh, you're an objectivist, aren't you? Kind of feel like instantly with the character. But again, I did not have it write the dialogue. I actually tried it, having it write the dialogue. And oh God, no, never again. No, that is not what I'm doing. But having it actually rewrite or revise my own words in that style so that it had those particular flourishes that makes it stand out actually did work and adds a very interesting color to that chapter, because when you meet this character, you immediately have a sense of them in a way that I was having a hard time getting across in my own style.
I
would like.
I had a.
I just wanted to point out ChatGPT can also help you. Have you ever had the problem of what is a nice way to say F off? I don't want to be on your committee. And ChatGPT can give you a very nice business way to say that without.
That's kind of what I was going to say. Because I had a Fiverr gig, and I was the gig was to critique someone's sales copy, and I could not figure out the nice way to say something without hurting their feelings, and I wanted it to be professional, but I just could not figure out how to make heads or tails of it. So I put it into ChatGPT, and I said, how can I rewrite this so that it is more professional and courteous? I think I said, I don't remember, something to that effect. And so it rewrote the statement for me. I did have to edit it occasionally, but for the most part, it was, I just copied and pasted for much of it. And I got a 5-star from the person who hired me. So yeah, they appeared to like what I did.
Yeah.
So
because it used to be, I used to have to use boomers for that. Like, this is true. I used to literally contact older people who'd been working in business for decades, be like, what is a nice way to say this? And then say my real thoughts. And they'd always like rephrase it for me. And, over years and years to do this, I started getting a vibe of how to rewrite it for myself. But ChatGPT is there. They are like your in-house boomer, ready to help you with what is professional business speak.
You don't have to go to the library and get those big fat books on how to write, 100 different ways to write business letters or whatever. You can just enter it into ChatGPT and poof, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've been using it a lot for lately is to cover up one of my weaknesses. I am terrible at writing character descriptions, but I generally, because I write in my head, it's very cinematic. I kind of see story and try to write it down. So a lot of the characters in my head are played by actors, musicians, celebrities. They get cast in my head. And so for one of the characters that y'all will be meeting if you're following along, the Shadow Phoenix Saga in the not too distant future, in my head is played by a young Gwendolyn Christie, but with purple hair. And so I just asked it, describe for me a young Gwendolyn Christie as a knight with purple hair. And it was able to give me words that I'm really bad at, like how to like cheekbones, noses, how to actually describe proportions of the body, so that the characters can have that quick, easy, recognizable description that you can throw in to a story. Now, I did not use the actual description it came up with, because it then started off Gwendolyn Christie as a and then gave the actual physical description. But I now have the words that I'm really struggle to figure out. Like, if I'm describing her face, how do I describe the cheeks, the lips, anything like that I might want to describe? How do I describe the proportionality of the body? How do I describe skin tone? Things of this nature that I may want things that I may want to include in the story, but I am terrible at knowing like what are the words to describe this. Because I have to say, like, when I first read a lot of books, I had all of the characters look very different in my head because I didn't know what they meant by long nose. And so my long nose and what most people mean when they write the phrase long nose were not the same.
Yeah, I was going to say specifically, if you see though a word or phrase you are unfamiliar, go look it up and make sure you agree with it, because
Yes.
the number of writers who use the word aquiline nose incorrectly.
Yep.
Because it is a literal contradiction to say a petite aquiline nose.
Yes.
That is an actual contradiction in terms. You don't know what you're talking about.
But it helped me a lot with that vocabulary to be able to describe some of the face shapes that I had in my head. Some of the, like, does this person actually have large eyes or small eyes? Or do I even mention the size of their eyes? Because to me, what I think is large eyes, most people think are normal. I've learned this about myself. Like, my descriptive power for what people look like is bad. And I can then take the description that it gave. I can, again, yes, always look up terms, especially terms you are not familiar with, and make sure that you're not using anything unintentionally racist or anything like that. Never describe people's skin color in terms of food. That can be problematic, especially for racialized people. It's extremely problematic. But
yeah,
I have
any term that ends in oid, avoid.
Yeah. But it's been very helpful
yeah.
for that. Also, for some cityscapes where I know specifically in my head, like, this particular building would be played by this building. I've asked it to describe that building for me. Now, it's like playing telephone. The description that it gives you, if you then handed it to an artist, they would probably not paint Emily to look like Gwendolyn Christie, because you're now playing a game of telephone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they would get the features that to me define the way that she looks, the way that her body is laid out, and the way that I see her in my head, and it would be closer to what I'm doing. And that's been very, very helpful for me in getting some of these descriptions right that I generally have to talk to an editor to help me with, because they're like, you didn't describe what anybody looks like in this book, right? Yes, I know.
That's what I'm paying you for.
How would you describe this actor?
So another use for ChatGPT that for marketing purposes is you can actually use it to help you create memes. I've used it a couple times to make a couple of memes, and you can't just say, oh, hold on, I have a spam call. There we go. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to explain the meme. You have to describe the image to ChatGPT, because it doesn't know memes. You can't just say it's the Arthur's fist meme where he's got his angry fist by his side. You have to say this is what is a good meme for someone holding their fist in an angry posture that is related to, particular topic that you want to target with your meme, or, you can tweak it to get what you want from it. But you can create memes. It's just a little challenging to get it to, you have to be very descriptive with your writing, which is good practice for any writer.
I've also used it a couple times to find out, like, does this idea have legs? Because back a couple, I don't know, time in the past, when Brian and I were checking out the show that I lovingly call Sarah Michelle Gellar Hunts Werewolves in a Forest Fire, we had an idea. We started joking around about ideas of like what could be a fun way to use this premise. And Brian was like, "Oh God, you have to write that." And I was like, "I don't know if I want to write that." And so I just fed the idea into ChatGPT and said, "Make me an outline. What would this story look like?" And it was an interesting way to do something that writers need to learn how to do, and that's fast prototyping. We get a lot of ideas, some of which will never go anywhere. They're just a nifty notion that we just put down in our journal somewhere. Maybe someday we'll come back to it. But we can get easily obsessed on a nifty new idea. Plot bunnies are a thing. And being able to use it to fast prototype, I think we did 6 or 7 different potential outlines for what the weird, like, the Earth's revenge is the werewolves coming to eat us storyline that we came up with, that we were joking around with, to get a quick sense of, is this story got legs? Is there anything here that beyond just that's a funny idea, maybe make a meme out of it and go on with your life, or is this a story I should be investing my time in? Because fast prototyping is hard for writers, because you start asking, like, but what about the world building, or what how would that actually happen? Like, no, you need to have a fast prototype to see, is it worth spending my energy on this? And again, none of the outlines that it came up with are really worth writing, but one of them had a couple ideas on it that put it into the, when I have some free time, I might noodle around with that a little bit more. And that's very handy, because we are really bad at having techniques to help us fast prototype ideas.
Yeah. All right, I think it's a good time to take a break.
And when we come back, maybe talk about inputting into more visual AIs.
I have thoughts about lots of them.
Yes, you've definitely coached me. I've gotten some weird results, but obviously I'm okay with it because I've used it in various articles.
And during the break, if you don't know what kind of stuff you can get from it, all of the Shadow Phoenix Saga images have been made from Midjourney. The actual cover art for the book I made myself, but the actual chapter by chapter images that are going up, so if you just load the playlist and look at the thumbnails, you can get some really evocative art if you're using these things right.
Very nice. All right. We will see y'all in just a few minutes. What a great time to make sure you have a snack. Make sure you got something to drink. How's your bladder? Let's be friends. See y'all. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Cha, cha, cha. Come out wherever you are.
Sorry, I was having a chicken sandwich.
I heated up another empanada, and it may or may not have actually been on fire.
Oh no!
All right. No, yeah. Yeah. I blew the fire out. Am I going to eat it? You bet. I'm not about to let this empanada go to waste. But yeah. She got on fire. Mm-mm.
Hey, your empanada is muy caliente.
Mm.
Oh yes.
I crave empanadas.
Are you saying we need to bring you some tomorrow?
No, that's okay. There will hopefully be non-white processed cheese blocks with flavor to eat. I don't know what those
Okay.
things were. You remember them? They were cute. They were white. They said they were cheese, but they tasted of nothing. It was in the before time, before the darkness, before the empire.
For the entire time.
So, generative art.
What? What'd you say, Charlie?
Yeah.
So, generative art. I again feel like we have to start off with just a few caveats. I understand a lot of the ink that has been spilled of people afraid that their jobs are going to be going away. I just want to say it is easier to envision the end of the world than the end of capitalism, and maybe we should
Oh my god, that's so true.
maybe we should just start doing the latter, because I don't. If you are making beautiful pieces of art, none of these tools are going to put you out of business. In the same way that record players did not get rid of live performances of music. Looking at you, John Philip Sousa. Generative art, AI art, is not going to put all artists out of work. It is going to make it harder for stock photo artists to do certain things. But I will say, until Stable Diffusion gets a lot better, because most of the ones that do more stock photo type stuff are built on Stable Diffusion. I would almost bet money that Canva is based on Stable Diffusion, though I cannot prove it. I have not seen where they named their actual generation engine. But so Canva has a weird superpower.
Isn't it text to image? Am I wrong? Or
Yep. Yeah, that's the one.
is it that okay.
Yeah, it's the text image. They actually have two, and they can be used together. So they've added some filters to this where you can now pick a size, because they used to always generate square. Now you can actually pick an aspect ratio, which is very helpful. And you can pick a style. Unless you have a very specific style that is clearly on their list, leave it at none. Or describe the style that you're looking for. Their style is exactly what the photo is. So if you don't want something that is very clearly that thing, don't use it. But you can get very elaborate in your description. You can be very simple with your description in here. The simpler ones work better. Unlike Midjourney and a couple others, they are not the best at understanding multiple items yet, or putting them together in a place that makes sense. But here's what you can do with Canva that is magic. So now that you've put that on there, if you can go up to the top and click the edit image, because this is something that you can do really easy in Canva that you can't do with any of the others. It's going to take a minute for everything to load. The magic replace, it's the third one from the left on the top row. If you click that,
This one?
Yep.
Magic Edit or Magic Eraser?
Yep. Yeah, magic edit. Okay. It'll give you a little paint tool. Just paint a blob on the giraffe's back. A little bit higher. Let's do it a little bit higher.
A bit higher now.
Like this?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like that. Now click continue. Type a cowboy.
What should I type in?
A cowboy. Now what it's going to do is generate
Hit it,
four
generate?
different. Yep. It's going to generate 4 separate cowboys and edit them to be on that giraffe's back. And you can click through them to see how they work. You can generate new ones if none of the ones that you like are exactly what you're looking for. You can be more specific and say a cowboy in a saddle. You
I like
can
this
do some really interesting edits. Playing around with this where you can change just a feature. Just
That's
a
pretty
thing.
cool.
And there are some tools that will let you do this, most of which are behind a paywall. And when I say a paywall, a ridiculous, oh God, why are you asking that much from people for what you're offering? Paywall. This is one that I believe with their announcement, they made accessible to everyone. Now everybody gets so many daily tokens, and depending on whether you have a free or paid Canva account, how many tokens you have. So how many times you can have it generate. But you get a separate pool of tokens for generating the text to image pictures as using the magic edit. So, and as you can see, it really tried to match style. It made all of the images, while they did not necessarily work, it tried to make photorealistic images for all of them because this is a photorealistic image. You can load your own pictures in here. Like, if you took in a picture of yourself, you could highlight your face and say cat's face, and it will generate a cat face to, like, you could do all those fun Photoshop things in here using generative art. There are a lot of interesting things that you can do with this to get just the image that you're looking for. And that magic edit is really nice because a lot of times, and their magic eraser, both of which, because there'll be times where you see an image in Canva that's like, I really like that, but I don't want them to be holding a pen in their hand, or I don't want, like one little thing is wrong. Well, with the magic erase, you can either select it and make it go away, and it does a really good job of that. Or with the magic edit, you can select the region and tell it to put something else there. And this is where you can have a lot of fun and also generate exactly the image that you're looking for. Now, the one warning I do have to give you is if you leave a weird little sliver inside, like if you don't actually connect all of the blob that you're painting, it will let a portion bleed through of the original image, which, again, you can use that to your own effect if that's what you want. But you can do a lot of interesting stuff with this. Oh, that's so weird. Oh,
oh my
we
goodness,
did
that one.
that first one to
It's
Laura.
terrible.
I need the story about whoever that person
Stuff of
is.
nightmares.
I need the Laura story about that.
Really? Because I
Or
thought that was
just the-
Guy Fawkes right there. That's the face your cat makes when it sees the first image.
But there are a lot of fun edits and tweaks that you can do with this and get just the image that you were looking for.
In what world is this like that?
Oh, I see what it did. It's like one of those masks that you could buy.
Oh, God.
Oh, stuff of nightmare.
And again, with your description, if you get very, very descriptive, you can actually say what angle the head is, that it's at 3/4 looking to the left and stuff.
I was
What?
like,
Again, so many pictures here just for Laura.
Versus if you wanted to roast someone, just take an image, highlight their face, and just type in pretty. And then watch how it and see what it does. Or I guess prettier. What monstrosity?
want me right prettier?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Making that computer work.
I don't know what's happening.
I love that.
Just stuff of nightmares.
What is that, angelic beauty?
Yes,
I don't know,
that
but I
is
think
the
I
name.
saw that in Owl House. Man, it is like doing the weird scuba thing on
Just
that.
some weird. Yeah.
Oh, the fourth one is actually.
He immediately accept the expression.
That is a full, lift and Botox treatment.
Mm.
I just got back from the doctor. Do I look okay?
I'm really sad. I just can't frown anymore.
Or this one. I came back for the doctor. I look okay. Like, oh, honey, you got the discount, huh?
But that first one with the sunglasses actually kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
The head angle's just a little off, but
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you see, like in a general sense, what you can play around with.
especially as fast as you did the selection. And
Yeah,
everything.
like I just pooped this out in like a matter of a moment.
Like there's some really powerful and wonderful things that you can do with this that are just. I am astounded.
I like that its idea of a prettier woman's face is sunglasses. That'll help this.
It's like
Isn't
a jacket.
It's totally fine. But yeah, like you can really start playing. You could put a cat face or a dog face on there. You could really play around. And you're still using your creativity though. It still requires your own personal creativity for this to work.
And it uses I've used it for some posts that aren't out yet that are very much in that kind of punk zine aesthetic, where I was able to select portions of it and be like a photocopy of a newspaper image of da 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 da, and have it look like, I know I'm old and people might not know what I'm talking about, but when people used to cut out the lettering and the images and collage things together and then photocopy them and go, look, I did an art for the magazine. Because it's fun. And I like fun.
Give me a ransom note.
Good old ransom notes. So if you really want to do some crazy artwork, I just logged into Midjourney. Now, Midjourney actually works with Discord, and the one thing that they don't tell you is once you start using using it, you can actually start a private chat with the Discord bot and chat in quasi privacy. Like you don't have to be in their chat rooms on their server to talk to the bot. So the page that I have loaded up, this is the explore page on there, and they generally speaking have rules where you cannot get Midjourney to do nudes, so we should be safe. But people have found some creative ways to get around it. But I love that cat. I love that cat. That is so adorable. And the fun thing with this is, as you're looking at the image, you can actually pull up and see what the prompt it was that made this. You can actually ask it to make variations of it, because remember, none of this is copyrighted. You are not making art that you own. If you want Midjourney to actually keep your stuff super secret private, it's like $50 a month, and they just won't post it to their website. That's all you're paying for, is for them not to post the images that you make to their website. But that's the only way to keep what you're doing super secret private on Midjourney and through most of these apps. So bear that in mind. But like, this is just gorgeous. That is breathtaking. And so is that. Like, this is just stunning.
Yes.
Midjourney 5 just came out, and the one thing that's amazing is it actually can count fingers now. I still think that thumb's a little weird, but we're not getting weird monster numbers of fingers on things now. But you can see the variety of images here that people have made, and it is absolutely stunning work. You can be very detailed about what art style that you want it to be in, which is why you're seeing the variety here of all of these different styles. And that is a gorgeous dragon. I will give you the one warning. Dragons are something that all of these generators have a really hard time with. So if that's what you're wanting to make them for, just know up front.
They're going to be funky looking.
Yeah, they're struggling really, really hard on making dragons. But, so this is my Midjourney, which I have used for a lot of different things. This was really fun because we were arguing over how people see God. And this is actually a passage I took from the book of Daniel, of his vision of God, and had Midjourney draw it. This is God according to the book of Daniel. And sent that to somebody to solve an argument. But you can see a lot of the artwork that I have done in here. It generates 4 separate images, which you can then have it spit out and make variations of. This is actually the character that I was talking about earlier that in my mind was played by a young Gwendolyn Christie. I actually took the description that I wrote of her based off of the description I got from ChatGPT and put it into Midjourney to make a profile picture of her. And this is what it came up with. And I can see the elements in there that were in my mind. The cheekbones, the lips. There's a lot of that structure in there. But again, this is not a knockoff of her. And by doing that, by kind of reverse engineering images in that way, I don't have to worry about using her likeness rights without having access to them. All of the elements that I wanted, that when I say somebody who reminds me of a young Gwendolyn Christie, I can see that in there. The nose, the eyebrows, the general face, I can really see it. But it generated it as a unique character. On that note, there are ways for you to generate characters in Midjourney that you can use over and over and over again. That's actually what this set of images here is for. And it's a detailed process that I'm not going to take the time to go into at this moment because it's like 32 steps. But if anybody wants to know, contact me. I can send you some tutorial videos or help walk you through it. But like, These are the Nefrir from the story setting that I'm working on, My Little Murder Radishes.
You're so cute.
I was gonna say,
And
So
it's just
super
so
serious.
cute.
go for this road.
I absolutely love this one. I actually edited this one in post because it made the face look furry. So I took out the furriness on the face.
Oh my god!
But yeah, My Little Murder Radishes, I actually have been able to start generating images of them now. It's Midjourney, unlike a lot of these, is designed to use natural language. So for a lot of the images that you saw in there, which were the chapter images for the Shadow Phoenix saga, I literally copied a passage from the book and pasted it in there, a descriptive passage from the book, and put it in there, and then had it do the adaptation for me. But when I say that you will often do, let me load this up so you can see what I'm talking about. And y'all know I overdo everything, so bear that in mind.
Yes.
I-
Like an adorable baby. I get it.
I'm giving examples, not this isn't you have to do the same kind of things that I do. But where are you? This one. Got to load two windows to be able to show this. Should have done this ahead of time. So, in the story the chapter that's coming out tomorrow, our characters meet the five Vajra for the first time. So I went into Midjourney and gave it a description of that scene from the book. And this is what Midjourney came up with. It actually came up with quite a few variations. This one was my favorite, but it is wrong. It has a lot of errors in them. But this was a great, really quick draft version of what I was looking for this scene. So I then took this image and went into my into Pixelmator, which is what I use to make artwork, and then took that image that I made there into Canva, and this is what the actual finished image is going to look like when the episode comes out tomorrow.
Nice.
Because for reasons, it is important to very clearly see the colors of the robes. That's actually got a story reason behind it. And I was able to go through, I was able to edit and make sure that the colors were extremely vibrant. You notice I changed a lot of the lighting for the entire picture and whatnot. But
It almost reminds me of the Power Rangers.
that's on purpose. That is very much on purpose, and I'm sorry to people that get to chapter 11.
Oh no.
I feel like what you're really saying is sorry, not sorry, but okay.
It was very yes, I was very intentional with the colors in here. It was very intentionally meant to evoke things like what you get in Seinen, kind of that Super Sentai kind of stories, and that's why for me when I made the thumbnail, the colors needed to be vibrant, like something from a Super Sentai story, because I kind of wanted your mind going there visually for events that will take place in the story. But this image here took me all of 30 minutes to make. From starting to send things to Midjourney to get early images made to this finished version here in Canva. This took about 30 minutes. And that's the power that you're getting out of this. Now, if I had just, like, if you don't have the computer skills or the art skills to go in and do these kinds of edits, like, let's be honest, the initial image, let me go back to that real quick. This initial image would have been fine. Like the one that Midjourney came up with initially. That's a perfectly good image. I still would have flipped it around the other way, and that's just because of the way I'm presenting the thumbnails. Excuse me, the left side gets cut off a little bit in the YouTube thumbnail for it. So the easiest thing to do is just to flip it around the other way, so this blank wall gets cut out instead. But this would have been perfectly fine to use. This is a really good, very evocative image. The issue also that you might notice in here is it forgot to put a blue one in. There's an orange one there instead. And it also forgot to put a hood on this guy, so I had to fix that in post as well. So they're still not perfect, but again, for somebody who, because the point of this image is to get people to click on either the podcast episode or to click on the story on Substack or to click on the video on YouTube. That's its purpose. This image would have done that just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a perfectionist, so I went through and did all the edits to get it closer to what I wanted. But you can do some amazing things. This looks a lot like the sequence in the book when they do their walkthrough, with the exception of the orange guy. Orange was not even in the description. Midjourney sometimes just it takes creative license, because if you notice, it actually made a gradient. It went, oh, we're doing a rainbow that goes green, black, yellow, orange, red.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not a rainbow, Midjourney, but I see what it was thinking. But the ability to produce this in that short of a period of time, so I can get back to writing, so I can get back to doing the things that I am wanting to do and not just doing the marketing stuff. So now I have images that I can post over to Instagram. I have images that I can use for these thumbnails everywhere. That is a very powerful thing to be able to do really, really, really quickly. And when I say I go through a bunch of these, let me get this loaded up. I'll actually load up my chat stream with Midjourney. Just got to make sure it's not on my chats with other people before I share. And I know it's going to be surprising, but you're going to see that I chat with Megan and Glory and other people. I know. The idea that we actually talk.
That's so weird.
It's crazy, but just so you understand a little bit of the interface and how this works. So as you can see, I'm in my DMs in Midjourney, and I DM'd the Midjourney bot. And that lets me do this. It's a /imagine and then you tell it what you're looking for. So that's the prompt that I wrote in, which version I want it to use, and whatnot. So initially, you can see here other versions that it made. This is where it's getting closer to the image that I wanted from this one. So this is, did it do the pop out? It did. Yay. Okay. Sometimes StreamYard doesn't grab the pop outs when you click them. So these are the first set of images that it made for this. All of these I really like for different reasons and might repurpose some of these for other things. Because the top left one here, I really like that image. It's not anything like what I described, but I could see repurposing that for something else. Same with the one below it. Like, that's a council of wizards going to do something crazy, and that might turn into a short story prompt. But you can see the one here that I ended up liking. Now,
I'm sorry, that bottom left one. That's that's hitting the club and watch me on the dance floor. I'm about to school everyone. Like, if you've seen the Oral Knots version of Larry, you know what I'm thinking of right now.
Remember, this is the setting that has the pole dancing wizards in it. So
I mean, it's not wrong.
It knows what it's doing. So the instructions under here are: the U's are to upscale. In other words, I want that image. The V's are I want versions of this image, and they're numbered clockwise around. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I guess in the Z. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you saw I wanted versions of those two. I actually did some prior to this that, again, I really like some of these, but they're not what I wanted. Like this one right here. This is a Council of Wizards that, oh yeah, they're up to no good. That's a Council of Wizards up to no good. Like, and there's another set that, again, wasn't quite getting me what I wanted. So you sometimes have to go through versions and versions and versions to get to what you're looking for. And I want to point that out because so many people are talking about how this is just, it's so easy. You type in your prompt and it magically gives you the thing that you wanted. Sometimes, yes. Other times you have to work with it and zhuzh it and adjust. Like you'll notice, I'm not going to go through all the minutia, but you can just see from me scrolling how the length of the description, the prompt is changing between these because I kept changing the prompt slightly until to make it closer and closer to the image that I wanted, and then started pumping variations out when I finally got something close to what I was looking for. You got to be willing to play with it and not give up if the first set isn't what you're looking for. I've worked with a lot of people in learning how to use generative art, and quite a few of them I see getting very frustrated because the first images that come back are not what they want. And immediately because we have this thing of if the tool doesn't work, it's my fault. I used it bad. No, these tools are toddlers. They're children. You have to speak to them very specifically, very carefully, or they will misunderstand you in the wildest possible ways. And that internalized, oh, I did a wrong, it does not need to come up. Like, don't. A lot of times you may have phrased it slightly wrong. You may need to change the order in which you're saying things so it understands what gets grouped together. Like if you have a big space in the middle of a description of a character or a setting, it may think that those are two completely separate things and generate them separately. So you have to be very careful in how you're stitching this all together. I accidentally put dialogue in one when I did a copy paste from the book to get an image, and it tried to put word balloons in, and it doesn't know language, y'all. Like it I don't know what alienese it tried to print inside those balloons, but I felt like I was getting cussed at by a robot. I'm just gonna say that. But
But
don't.
again, this is why I always be suspect of anyone who tries to talk about these as the end of everything.
Yeah.
These are tools. They are not, and I hate to use this one, but it's again showing who has played D&D or something similar a bunch and who has not. Because these AI tools are like wishes.
Yes.
In that there's so many ways to interpret and misinterpret what you are trying to get it to do. And this is what it will show you is there's more than one way to interpret what you think is very clear and concise.
And also understanding when you're saying in the style of, this is one of the things that really gets me when I hear people saying, well, you can say do it in the style of my art and it's copying, it's stealing. If you notice, all of these images said in the style of Final Fantasy VII. If you've played any version or seen any of the artwork for Final Fantasy VII, none of it looks like this. The thing that I learned when I was trying to say a fantasy image is it kept trying to give me like the cover, like a Boris Vallejo or Hildebrandt Brothers style, like classic fantasy image. And that's not what I was looking for. When I said anime, it was literally anime. And that's not the aesthetic that I'm going for. When I said Final Fantasy, it kind of got it that it's kind of drawn. It's kind of like, I even tried using artist names and it couldn't get the style that I was looking for. And I literally just started throwing, well, what about Final Fantasy this, that, and the other? And when I hit 7, none of these images look like there's something from Final Fantasy 7. Final Fantasy 7 has a very specific aesthetic to it that it is not putting in here at all. But it started understanding, oh, so it's kind of animated like, but kind of painted, but kind of like exaggerated. Like, it brought together enough of the idea of the style of art that I was going for. That
I know, versus oddly, most of what it created, I consider more Warhammer 40K art.
yeah, it did not make, when I tried that one, and no, that's not, it did not, it made like the covers of the games style artwork.
Yeah,
which
and
was,
it shows you, the shortcomings of all this is that it's what was that art originally tagged as? What did they think people would know it for? That's the words you have to figure out to use. And that's also where ChatGPT comes in handy, because ChatGPT will tell you the more general, average, response for that versus the more accurate that you might know.
so yeah, with a well-known famous artist, like if you say, give it to me in the style of Monet or Van Gogh or Da Vinci, it can actually replicate their style. I will tell you, it will become extremely racist. It will not. I have yet to get it to do an image of a black person in the style of Da Vinci. I took this as a personal challenge, and you can put in descriptions of people. You can use historical people who were of African or African American descent. It made so many white Martin Luther King Jr. Pictures that I was offended. Like, it's understanding of Da Vinci's style, because Da Vinci painted white people. This is also something that's baked into how it's understanding these terms. Da Vinci didn't paint a lot. I don't know. I cannot, off the top of my head, think of any people of color that Da Vinci painted.
No,
And so that's baked into what it understands as his art aesthetic, and it turned everyone into Renaissance white people. So that is a limitation that is in these systems that is showing that it is seeing that skin color, and it's valid because his skin color is a big part of what makes the Da Vinci aesthetic work, the way he layered various colors with translucent paint to get a flesh-like appearance. That actually is a big part of his aesthetic, and I'm sure that the stuff that they trained on helped it to understand that. But oh Lord, it whitewashed every person of color I tried to get it to make an image of, because I was curious and offended by the results, and I reported all of them.
Okay.
But
I still have to go look, but in some Leonardo da Vinci collections, there are statues of African people in there. I still have to look and make sure that it was like from his collection, and he may not have actually done it himself, but rather these were like these little tabletop figurines. But that may have been something. So again, the limitations of what they fed into it, like obviously not his entire collection.
And also,
but again, a tool is only as good as the developers. Hence why, I know people who used to make a full-time living making Photoshop brushes for photographers who primarily do pageant pictures. Like, I know so many pageant photographers who spend every year hundreds of dollars on specialty brushes, and it's just software. It's just software add-ons for Photoshop, to get that poreless, doll-like look on people's pictures. They would buy special brushes. Also, literally, you could buy a, quote, brush to put in a variety of kinds of false eyelashes on in your pictures. In the digital pictures. And I know photographers who would do this, and who they purchased from, and these are essentially people who, you know, are, I think of more like Laura's corner of artistry, who made a full-time living just making these kind of brushes for people to use as an add-on in Photoshop. But again, that's because Photoshop itself did not actually have the full capabilities of what people were trying to use it for. So they were buying add-ons to it. And it was amazing what they could do. Like, I'm like, okay, because, like, you know, I was a young photographer once and was like, well, here, take a picture of me, load it in. We're literally doing it. You know, bring out the camera, digital camera, take a picture of me, load it in, and let me see what you can do with the false eyelash brush alone. Was it, in fact, worth $25? And it really, she could, in a literal matter of a couple minutes, like not even 3 minutes, so maybe about 2.5 minutes, made my image look like I had on very realistic false eyelashes.
And it can be,
But and while, like, when you ask how did you do that, and her answer is Photoshop. It's not really, is it? Because she actually had to buy an add-on, and someone had to program in these, and then that particular person, all they did was specialize in false eyelash brushes for Photoshop. And like, they were like, well, I can make you false eyelash brushes in any kind of false eyelash if you want. So, like, people were requesting all these, you know, top of the line expensive false eyelash brushes to make all the people in that they were putting images of in Photoshop look like they had on these very expensive false eyelashes, when in fact they were never applied. Because the truth is, so this photographer I knew, she specialized in child pageant pictures, because that is some real money. Mamas will put out hundreds of dollars for pageant photos. And this was how this photographer supported her whole family. But you don't want to actually put adhesive on a 4-year-old's eyelashes, like, bad. And so the reason why mamas would pay her hundreds of dollars for a photo shoot is they don't have to apply all that makeup and questionable chemicals to their child's face. They still love their children, but they want that look, because part of the points you score in these pageants is on the printed headshot photo, not on what showed up that day, not the kid, but on the picture, which is kind of wild, but okay. And so this was how mamas were able to get around putting a bunch of chemicals on their kids' faces and still get those points for the pageants. And it was like wild to me that you really could make it look like these very expensive with the rhinestone tips and everything. Like, I cannot stand to put the heavy weighted false eyelashes on my face. Like, oh, it's such a sensory issue. I cannot handle it. But yet she could load my image into her software. And it's like, I got full drag eyelashes on. It's fantastic. It's so cool. So again, it's just technology software. And that is essentially the limitations of AI. It's only as good as that of the people behind it.
And what you are, and the what you are willing to put into it. So I just put up a couple examples just to show you, like, what I got from Midjourney to final image, because I get really upset and offended when people are talking about this like it's, oh, no, people are just using the straight out of the bucket. So simple image right here on the top, that's what I got out of Midjourney. It was most of what I wanted. It was, again, wrong way around, and I didn't like that it added the birds. The birds didn't need to be there. So some quick photo editing, going in, reversing the ship around. Notice I actually changed the clouds somewhat as well. I changed the water to be more what I wanted. I actually moved where the ship is and changed its orientation. You are going to get out of it what you want to. This is the most stark one for my money. The top image here is what I got from Midjourney in describing the glittering horror. It made this weird blob monster. It put people in, which I don't know why. It put rock here, which, again, I don't know why. And after some time in Pixelmator, this is the actual finished image that showed up on the thumbnail. I probably wouldn't have gotten to this image without the other one. The other one really helped a lot. You can see the bones. It sped up the process of getting from one image to the other immensely. And if this is what you want, if this is what you're looking for, this first image here is a perfectly creepy monster image. It's just not the image that I wanted. And so you can go through and play with and really make these your own. And that's where you are going to stand out, and why a lot of the arguments that I hear about this is going to get rid of artists. No, it's not. Like, the second image is my art, no matter what anybody wants to call it, because I did that. And you can't let people take it away from you when you're going in and making substantive changes to these and using them as a base image. Because let me tell you a secret about professional art and how professional art works. They're buying stock photos so that they have the rights to them and tracing them. So much. If you're reading comics, that's where a lot of those faces are coming from. Or they're using programs like Daz 3D or Poser to create things, and they are tracing them and they're adding their art on top of it. That doesn't make what they're doing any less art, but it's a quicker way to get what they're wanting to. They can compose the shot really quickly and move on to a finished product. If you are putting effort into these in writing the descriptions or in anything in post, whether that's the stuff you're getting from ChatGPT, Midjourney, or anything else, it is your art that you are making with this. And just because people want to be purists and pretend that the industry that exists right now is the industry that we have, like if I had a dime for every time a Star Wars artist got caught using fan work ships in the background of their comic book images that they sold to Marvel without permission, or used an image of a model that they did not license for one of the characters that shows up in there, and traced it so much that somebody went, "Hey, you modeled for this comic?" That's how the actual industry works. Nobody has time to be sitting back. If you're in the actual industry itself, if you're making content, trying to get money, you have to find the quickest way to do your art that you can.
Well, it's kind of like the whole Disney movies. The reason Disney movies look as good as they do is almost all of it is filmed by live body actors who are acting it all out, and then the artists literally trace over the cell of each frame. And then they put, whatever it's supposed to, the actual dress or the changed, the species or whatever. But they didn't just whole cloth come up with that image for any of it. For the longest time, they were getting
muted, Megan. I see your mouth going.
So even back in so my grandfather was a cartoonist for Walt Disney, and so what they would do is they took pictures of the actors like narrating their lines, and like I have my dad has a photograph of one of the actors for the Donald Duck actor with a cap on his head to mimic the bill of the duck, and so they could get the expressions correct while they were, so this has been done since way back.
Yeah, and I am not a fan of this mythologizing that's happening, that all artists are just pouring this out of their soul onto the canvas, and that's being taken away by AI tools. Yes, some people are doing it that way, where they're just coming up with an idea, painting it on their own with whatever tools that they're using. Yes, but if you're talking about any commercial artist, they're using some kind of a cheater hack to speed up their work.
Even as a professional photographer, I have had artists, like painters, send me their model with instructions of posing and lighting, and I have then done professional photography portraits of the model as instructed, as well as when we play with other things, and then sent that back to the painter. Who, when I asked, well, how are you going to get it on the canvas? Out of curiosity, like, how you just what was your plans? Y'all, does anybody remember childhood where we would take a pencil and literally cover the back of a piece of paper with graphite and then trace over it on the other side? Do you remember that? Homemade carbon copy is what I think of it, or carbon paper. That's literally what it's going to do. And I was like, you could buy carbon paper, right? Like for $10 for like a sheet of 100. He's like, oh, this is a good idea. That was literally what he was planning to do. Yeah, that's what they're taught, because you want it to be realistic. But he's literally copying my photography, which I knew was going to happen. I had no issues with. I don't want anyone to think like I'm like, he's copying my work. No. But that was because he wanted that super realistic look rather than a more impressionistic style. What he did was great, but at the end he actually was not satisfied, because he's like, you made her skin glow and all I did was copy it. And I'm like, oh, did you think I was not a good one? You really need to find somebody who's not as good at portrait. But the models loved what I did, because that is actually what I'm known for, truthfully, in portraiture, is I really focus a lot on skin. Like, I want the skin to look so good when I print out the image, you want to touch it. And that's how I know every time when I give somebody their prints, if they're like, they trace their finger over just to make sure it's not real skin. That's how I know I did my job, right? But that's my focus as a portrait photographer. But nevertheless, I asked him, like, how long, I didn't know that painters were doing this. Like, I thought, and he's like, as long as photography has existed.
Yeah, I'm.
And before that, they used to use the silhouette shadow box. He's like, that's what painters used to use. Yeah, the camera obscura, that. And the silhouettes, that's literally what painters have been using. That is why you see this leap from, what we think of as medieval portraits to Renaissance. That is what I have ruined it. Congratulations. You don't need an art degree anymore, everybody. If you are still listening, I am telling you the secret of why all the Renaissance stuff looks good versus the older medieval paint portraits from the 13. What is it? Well, really, it's like 10 through the 1300s. Why do people look a little funky? And that was because the camera obscura technique actually came up in Europe from the Crusades. Because the Middle East knew what they were doing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, as an old one, I started. We were doing this before a lot of these digital techniques came up, and we used to use. I forgot, it was this knockoff brand of Polaroid film that you could get for Polaroid cameras. That if you cut them open, the actual image was translucent and it had a black background on the inside, and that's what made everything look dark. But you could pull that sheet out that had the actual transparent image on it and put it on an overhead projector to project onto the canvas that you were going to be working on, and then trace it that way. And that's how we were doing this, like in the 90s, before a lot of these digital art things came out. Like, we would fight in the classroom over who had access to the overhead projectors to get our tracing down.
They even had overhead projectors when I was in college, in my college painting course, to help us project our image onto the canvas so we could trace it and then go to painting the next step,
Yep.
So it was very fun.
So don't feel like you're cheating with any of this stuff. Like, if you're just saying, write me a blog post on this topic and posting whatever it spits out, I don't know that that's necessarily cheating, but it will not get you an audience because it doesn't have a voice. It doesn't have a point of view. And if it does have humor, it's going to be that really weird kind of punny dad humor that ChatGPT has that, I don't know, but it's going to be really hard to develop an audience just using that. And that's where I'm not worried about this taking away creatives' jobs, especially not at this point, because it is not producing that level of creative output. It's making beautiful things. It is making stunning things. And I don't know if you saw any of the prompts that were on the screen when I was showing you some of the stunning images in Midjourney, but those descriptions are like pages long because people are describing every little bit of that image to get it the way it is. And that is a talent in and of itself, to be able to coax these AI art generators to be able to do that. But use the tools that are available to you. Would I love to have a bevy of artists that I could just go to, like Stan Lee, and say, I have an idea, make this for me, and I will own it forever? Yes, because there's a bit of the evil capitalist in me, and I would like to have a person that I could yell at and be like, those lines are in the wrong place, fix it. Because I can't do that with any of the generators yet. But I don't have the funds to be able to do that. And I'm not going to get to the place where I have the funds to do that if I can't build an audience. And the same is true for the rest of y'all. You need to be thinking about this as, how are you going to be doing your marketing? You know what? I've noticed that since I started putting these really pretty Midjourney pictures on my stuff, people are more interested in my fiction because it's not just blank text of, hey, would you be interested in this fantasy? You can see the whimsy. You can see the strangeness. You can see those things that make my fantasy stories clickable. And in fact, the first episodes that people are reading, you can kind of get a sense of what their aesthetic is, because you can watch their trail as they click on, oh, that looks interesting, and clicking on the image of a chapter, and then either reading the story backwards or skipping back to the beginning and reading it forward. Like, you can see how it's working. Have to be able to entice people in. If you're not doing those things to make your work attractive, it doesn't matter if we're writing the greatest thing in the world. It's about market access. It's about getting in there. We say this all the time in all of the different contexts that we've talked about this. And this is a way that we can inexpensively get access. And that's, I think, what a lot of the fear is about that I see, especially with some of the larger markets that have, like the CNBCs and the Fox businesses, that are really trying to scare people with AI art and generative AI in general, is like YouTube was how it was able to break down a barrier where anyone with a camera could start talking to people and build an audience. And now the biggest TV show in the United States is Mr. Beast. When you look at his actual numbers, more people are watching Mr. Beast in the United States than anything that is on television.
I am enjoying that he's now like, I'm tired of these transphobes. And it's like, yeah, you have no idea. Like, oh, you just getting here. Hello, privileged white man. It's so nice that you have joined the boat.
But
yeah, no, you're not wrong. I mean, he is the most watched, which is wild.
And that's why people are always denigrating people who do podcasts or YouTube or any of these things, because we're a threat to those bigger businesses, because we have access to a market now we didn't used to have. And that's what this is going to give us as well.
I mean, something, younger people would not realize, although who knows if they're even watching it. But up until, 4 years ago, all SNL content was banned on YouTube and was constantly DMCA'd.
Yep.
Like, they just refused to allow it on there because they were worried about losing audience, till they had no option left, and they had to put it on YouTube because that's where everyone was wanting to watch it in the first place. They just wouldn't go to NBC at all.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the user interface for the NBC to watch SNL, it was terrible.
You should see the CW one.
Hard pass. No. Hard pass.
No, thank you.
But yeah, this is about market access and being able to find a way to get your voice out there. Because whether we like it or not, if we're writers, if we're poets, if we're creatives of any stripe, the 90% of your job, if you want this to be a job, is jumping up and down and screaming like the dogs are right now. Mommy, pay attention to me. There's a thing you gotta see.
Must protect mother.
And that is the vast majority of our job. And I can tell you right now, I have only ever in my life met one writer who liked doing that. Exactly one. And he was the rarest of all writers, an extrovert writer, who not only was an extrovert writer, but was overly talented. And I hated how much he could just like, oh, I'm bored. And I would watch him sketch like what I would consider a finished masterpiece. Is like, yeah, I'll scan this in and fix it later. And I'm just like, fix it. What do you mean fix it? Like he was just
Stop looking at me like that, Tom. I hate you.
But like I said, I've only met one person that liked to do the marketing, who liked to do this other side of it, because we finished a book and we don't even like taking time to celebrate the fact that we finished a book because we're already like, but I've got 3 more books I want to write.
I thought you came to the library. I didn't know I came to the library to be read.
Everybody's in the library.
Ha. I hope everybody's enjoyed their introductory toe dip into utilizing AI for your world domination through writing plans.
I got one last one for you.
Okay, what you got?
Because I was just thinking about it, because bringing up the books, and it's like, that's right. Yeah, I've got a couple books I'm still trying to write and work on.
I was literally going over one of my, Tom knows what I've been doing.
Yeah. And I was realizing like another thing I've been starting, like I'm still learning. But I know it'll help me because this one admittedly is nonfiction, but it'll also work somewhat for fiction, is how do I write this? Of truly, the writer's room of how do I talk about this? And we'll give you at least an example to get you started. Because I know I am the type of writer, and I come from a family line of these, of where creating the clay is the hardest part for us.
Yes.
We enjoy editing. All of my family lines, both sides, love editing stories. We love, iterating them and making them even better. But creating that initial clay of a story to start with is hard. And that is, again, where ChatGPT can come in and help you get that basic part of, what happens next. Give me some ideas of, the stuff we use writers' rooms for.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's this scene, and then they go, and then there's going to be this scene later, but how do they get to that scene? All right, ChatGPT, what happens between these two? And at least it'll, in a writer's room, situation, give you a response. It may not be the right response. It probably won't be, but it will get your brain thinking in different ways. And that is what I also like about it is, how would I discuss this nutrition? How would I tell people what is they need, what to look for, what they need in it to stay, healthy while they're doing this project? And ChatGPT can essentially give me, here's the average of the, of the internet really at this point, responses for this kind of material. And so I find it very useful for that. I need more clay. I just don't have it in me to make clay, but I can rearrange and edit it to what I want. But give me some clay first.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's very helpful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, we're all living in this trash fire of a world right now, and we all have very few spoons. We all have so few
my problem.
Spoons. And anything that speeds up any of this is handy. I would not be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for generative AI. I'm using generative AI to actually make my audiobook podcast. It takes me about 12 hours to edit down the god-awful takes of me reading fiction into something listenable, because I can read anything and make it work unless it's fiction, because I start getting dumb ideas like I should have an accent here, or I
Oh,
should do this other thing. And oh
why
God,
have you
it's
come to
terrible.
me like this? Yes.
So, like in this world of generative AI, I have a vocal clone of myself that I made with Descript, and it lets me load up my text. It sounds like me. It it actually, I noticed the other day because the most recent video I did that came out is my actual voice. I actually recorded it, and I think it sounds less like me than if I would have just used this Descript to record to do the audio for me, and that freaks me out a little bit. But
Mood. Tom had to listen to me last night rail against listening to my own voice. I hated it.
but having access to this, I can finish my edits. I can get what I'm doing done. It's also been very helpful for me because my blog is now 100% accessible, because all I have to do is finish a post, load it into Descript, and use my general narrator voice to spit out an audio of it. And there it is. If you have trouble reading or you don't feel like reading, you can just listen to it. And it gave me the ability to add that level of accessibility to what I'm doing in a way that I just don't have the time and energy to record and edit. I'm an audio snob, and I don't like how my voice sounds, and I spend so much time tweaking knobs and stuff. I spent a lot of time doing that and making very clean versions of my voice that have all the bells and whistles already on it, and I just make it happen. And I really like the way that it sounds. I like the way that it works, and I like the way that it gives me access to a market that I would not have otherwise. And that's what these tools are about. I'm able to get these stories out there because I want these stories to have an audience. I, yes, would like to make money off of them, but I can't do that if nobody knows that they exist and nobody is getting into them. So I am putting them out in so many different ways. And I have so much pride every time an episode comes out because my world looks like this. My world has this imagery attached to it. And I know the effort that I put into making it look and sound and feel the way that it does. And everyone deserves that, whether you have a multi-million dollar corporation behind you to help your dream come true, or if it's just you in a chair with some AI buddies making it happen. And that's where I'm really excited about this new era of generative AI.
Final thoughts. Who's got some?
I think I just gave mine.
Yes,
I think that's why it was already popped up.
Yes, that's why I did.
I mean, mostly mine are the same thoughts of the we're all tired, we're all trying our best, but we are human. We still want to be understood, and we still want to create. And these generative tools definitely make it easier to create, but you still have to have a human to drive it. What's his name? Adam Conover did one recently on AI. That's where I found out that it's generative AI is the current term for it.
Mm-hmm.
And discussing the sordid history of AI, and especially how Tesla is now being actively investigated by the U.S. government for lying about self-driving vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And that, no, we were not nearly as far along as they kept saying for the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
That robots are just not that good at the task of driving. This is not, something right around the corner. And generative AI is just good at, generating. It still needs a human to drive it. I mean, humans can now create much faster. As you hear all the parts that Charlie is able to do with, their story to get all this other material around it out so quickly, and not having to be a true polymath of, so many artistic skills at once.
Mm-hmm.
That it does lower the barriers to create our own visions. And that's what I love it for is, but it's still a tool.
And I just want to add one thing onto that. I think that this is going to let us hear a lot of voices we never could have heard before
Mm.
I agree.
in ways that are really going to be powerful and moving in ways that we just do not understand yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the most recent things I started doing that I have to admit is way more fun than I ever imagined is going to ChatGPT. Think of any weird Mad Lib of ideas, and then tell it to write a song or a limerick
Oh,
about
yes.
that, and see what it creates. And then create another one and see the options it comes up with. And some of them, but some of them are really fun.
I had it come up with the greatest hippo song ever. Like, I really want this like to be sung or something because
Mhm.
it's perfect for me at least.
Yeah, I
I
had
might
it.
be the only person in the world who is like, yes, this song is great, but
And give it time, it will probably start including stuff with how to add musical elements to it. And we'll start.
Actually, on that note, it already can. I had it right. I love one of the things I love about Tolkien is how he includes all the weird like folk songs from Middle Earth in the story. Like I geek out on that. I love that he did that. And so I had it write some folk songs for my setting. And then I asked it, what are the chords for each verse? And it actually gave me the chords to go along with it. And when I put that into Hook Theory, it actually is a decent song that I'm gonna try to find somebody to sing for me. Like it, it may not come out perfect each time, but chord progressions are not copyrightable.
Mm-hmm.
I need to say that to everybody who has sued Katy Perry and a lot of other people lately. Chord progressions are not copyrightable. You can't own a chord progression. Stop it. But yeah, you can ask it for the chords.
Mm-hmm.
It won't write the actual sheet music for you, but it will give you like the
Yeah.
chords the chords to go along with it.
Which one were you using?
That was in ChatGPT is what I did
No,
for
no,
the
so the
Hook
chords.
Theory. Hook Theory's HookPad.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
I prototype all my music in HookPad.
Okay, because yeah, it's like I thought Hook Theory was how to was the training one.
Yeah. It's the Hook Theory is their main site with all their other businesses, but HookPad really lets you prototype a song really, really quickly. And I've used that for if you've heard my music, everything past Have Mercy was prototyped in HookPad.
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Megan,
Which
do
has
you have any final thoughts?
which by the way,
Everybody
one
has
real quick,
taken all my final thoughts and said them already, so I've run out of final thoughts.
and one real quick AI tool that I didn't even think about until this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
HookPad actually has a magic chord button that if you don't know what should happen next, you can hit the magic chord and it will give you options for where the progression can go from where you're at.
Well, Megan, there's an idea.
Yes.
I think my final thoughts is what my final thoughts often are, which is when you're dealing with something new, it can be very intimidating. And I'm going to say the same thing I've said to all of my students always from the start, and that is go in there and get weird and fail. And if you're not failing, then you're definitely not getting out of your comfort zone. So you need to go, well, that didn't work, and go again, because how will you know what you are really capable of creating until you fail a lot? Because failing shows that you got out of your comfort zone and that you're in uncharted waters for yourself. But also, uncharted waters is where you also learn new skills. Using all of these AI, generative AI software, all of them are going to teach you how to work with them better. That is a skill. And all skills can be coached, can be improved. And so, again, one of the things I really try to stress to people is, and partly because I too went through the public school system, at least for part of my academic career, and that is, people get this idea that they should be afraid of failure, that they should only do what they know they can succeed in and avoid things that they would struggle in. Because again, life is too short and they got too much on their plate and all this. But here's the deal. You're not going to learn new things, and you're not going to learn what you're capable of until you fail a lot. So the answer is always no till you ask. And look at it this way. You've already failed at ChatGPT, and you've already failed at Midjourney and all of these. If you've never tried them, then you've already failed. But you go in, and even if you get only one thing that you actually wanted out of it, or you got some inspiration, then that is a success. And you deserve the dopamine that you get from getting something you want out of these generative AI softwares. So go out there and just futz around. Just futz. Just putter your way through. Go, well, I learned a lot of what doesn't work. And maybe, now I'll try some new ideas. And you go back. It doesn't all have to be in the same week. It could be, you try it once, and the next month you're feeling froggy again. So you try it again. Try, and try again. Try a bunch of things, because you might be surprised at what you discover. So try the things everybody says not to do. What is that? I have no idea, but you have probably already heard, like, people like, oh, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, or don't try to get nudes out of it, or whatever. I don't know. Go try things that you think are forbidden or verboten, or that you shouldn't do, or it just can't do, and see what you get. You may enjoy the results. I mean, I have literally gotten results that, while they are not what I wanted, they are cool enough that I could publish it, like as images for some of my stories and things. And that's all I needed. I just needed a visual. I just needed something that looked kind of like what I was thinking of. It's fine. Go try. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Just go try. One of the things I noticed is, and like, I normally talk about how it's so much more fun to teach children, but this is actually one of the few times I'm going to say it's actually more fun to teach adults. Adults tend to be more willing to experiment with a new device, a new toy, a new software such as this, than children. Children are actually very intimidated by, anything new, let alone a new technology. And so they require a lot of coaching and a lot of modeling before they'll go and do it. And this is one of the few times I really enjoy teaching adults, is adults are so much more willing to understand of, you're not going to succeed straight out. Nobody will. And so be prepared. So get in there and just play around. Play with no set goal. Just play and see what happens. At the very least, you've had a fun hour. Like, seriously, ChatGPT can give you endless Laffy Taffy jokes, y'all. And you can wow a child with those. You can wow grandparents with it. They're so dumb. They're so fantastically stupid.
I've used ChatGPT to write fan fiction I couldn't find.
There. So again, like, just get out there and have a good time. And definitely, we'd love for you to report back to us on your experiences, because this is all new frontier stuff. So nobody entirely knows everything that it's capable of and everything it's not. No, we don't actually know, because it's constantly changing. So go out there and then share with the crowd what you've learned. We all want to hear about it. We definitely want to hear about your experiences. So I hope you all have fun experimenting with the generative AI, and that you will also be able to resist the call to emotionally get upset from all the headlines about how AI is going to destroy humanity or whatever nonsense. And that you can just enjoy the 2020s for what they are, a wild decade. It's the wild west of decades of the 21st century. Who knows what you're going to get? I don't. But I know what you're going to get next week, because that leads me into what to expect on next Monday's episode. Speaking of other skills that are so useful for writers, we're going to talk about Substack and newsletters in general. Substack does not have the corner on newsletters, but they definitely have a great platform to help readers find a lot of writers who are writing what you really want to read, because magazines have died. Magazines as we knew them in the 80s and 90s. Oh, y'all, magazines were so wonderful back then. And the problem is the same problem that happened in the traditional book publishing field, which is all these corporations went and bought up all these magazines and then made them all the same, and nobody wanted to subscribe to a bunch of the same magazines owned by the same company who were all utilizing the same small group of writers. And so everybody stopped subscribing, and the death of magazines has happened. So where did all these magazine writers go? Spoiler, they went to Substack. I mean, not all of them probably, but a lot of them did. And so if you enjoyed long form essays, features, deep dives, and also just, like even the New Yorker used to occasionally print mom blog articles in the 90s. Like, people don't remember this, but I remember reading about like this woman's adventures trying to find a pumpkin outfit in Manhattan for her child for like, I don't know, it was like a pilgrim kind of Thanksgiving play. And it's like, my child's playing the pumpkin. I really should not be going to this much effort for a pumpkin. Like, they don't even have a proper speaking part, but here I am scouring the entire island looking for a pumpkin outfit. And I remember reading that article going, she got published in the New Yorker. I should really try more and submit more. I remember that thought in the late 90s, because my mother was the one who showed me this article going, look, this woman, it is an entire article about nothing. Like nothing. Where did she find a pumpkin outfit? Her mother's best friend had a pumpkin outfit in the attic from the 40s for a child. This woman hoarded everything. And so they borrowed it, and the child complained it smelled like mothballs. Well, no kidding, kid. It's spent half a century in mothballs. Just deal with a mothball-ridden pumpkin, okay? And that was the summation of this article. But I still enjoyed the article, but it was an article about nothing. So again, we're going to talk about Substack and how Substack can be useful to writers, and also in general, what does it seem like readers are looking for now in newsletters? Spoiler, everything old is new again. Everything my mother loved about having newsletters mailed to her from all over America by all these people in their little cottage industries, made on ditto machines and rolled out on photocopiers at somebody's dental clinic. My mother used to pay for all of these little newsletter subscriptions. If you mail us $1, you'll get a year's subscription. That kind of thing. She loved it. And now everybody wants those kind of newsletters again. Like, no more polished. They want sincere. They want authentic. Well, guess what? I happen to have like all this knowledge about what was really popular in 70s and 80s newsletters, because we didn't have cable. So my mother used to give me all these old stacks of newsletters. Here, read that. Maybe let me know if you find anything interesting. She'd buy people stacks of newsletters at garage sales of like, here's every newsletter I received in 1976. It's labeled. Random stuff, y'all. But it was the 70s. So again, all that, has been newsletter stuff. That's what people want again. So we're going to talk about all of it. Plus, promotion, Substack has changed. So much. Yes, fun fact. Woody Allen is now on there. I blocked him.
What?
Yeah, Woody
Dan
Allen.
Rather's on there, and he commented on one of my posts, and I freaked out.
Yeah. So, like, Substack is something, but also newsletters in general. I used to think, like, who wants newsletters? I, a millennial, was like, I don't want things emailed to me. My email is a pit of a black hole of nothingness, and I never check it. Well, it turns out everybody wants email newsletters delivered to their email now. Okay. So this is what our research has shown, and everybody else and our whole little group of authors who has Substacks or is at least reading Substacks now. And this is what it appears people want. So we're going to get you involved too, because this is another way to develop a platform, to develop a community centered around what you write and what you think. We sincerely hope you will not use it for real evil.
And
Only
some
funny.
people are on there doing that.
Yes, that's why I already blocked Woody Allen.
I feel like my Substack feed is like, tell me you're not okay without telling me you're not okay, because it's nothing but like rage, inspiration, and cookie recipes.
It really seems to have helped, though. You seem to be growing, so I mean, it doesn't sound bad. Anyone else have thoughts about next week's episode? I'm open.
I feel
No?
like
Yeah.
I'm in a renaissance of myself where I started. I actually did the butterfly meme in real life the other day, where I just kind of like pointed at an article that I wrote and went, "Am I an essayist now? Like, is this my new career as an essayist? Like, what is going on here? Because I've written
Yes,
quite a few
join me,
very quickly.
join me.
So yeah, I think I may be an essayist now.
Woot woot. I've
Yeah,
converted
every
another
time I work
follower.
on my newsletters and I like do a little more, I can hear my mother go, "Yeah, do that," because this was all the stuff that what made newsletters popular in the 80s, and I'm like, no, and the ghost of my mother's like, yes, do this too, and then we grow subscribers, and it's like, I'm so glad she's not around to have to hear me tell her that she was right. I'm so grateful.
My last essay on creativity has a drabble smack in the middle of it of Death writing a story, because why not?
Why not? For reals, why not? All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate that you've lasted this long. If you are still here, you are definitely our favorites, our special favorites. Shh, don't tell the rest. So, we will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.